To order the work session of the West Lafayette Community School Corporation Board of School Trustees for Wednesday, July the 5th. It is 5:33 p.m. It should be noted that we have some folks in attendance virtually this evening. We have member Amy Austin, Secretary Amy Austin, who is traveling and dialed in. We have Mike Reuter, as we know, our financial consultant. Dr. Yin was supposed to dial in, but I am not seeing her here at this time. Can she join at some point, Mr. Hamilton? Could she still join? Okay. Yeah. I know she just got it this afternoon, yeah, and confirmed it this afternoon, so I don't think there's a need for that necessarily. All right. So I'll call that meeting to order. Just for a point of clarification before we get started tonight, this is a work session, so there are no, it is not a regular meeting of the board. No decisions are made, no votes are taken. This is a meeting open to the public. We do have some members who have signed up here and are interested, or one person interested in speaking. That will come after the referendum portion. Also, as noted by our board policy and also state law, in a regular meeting, I would need to have missing or members who are attending virtually visible on the screen. But because it's a work session, I'm not putting Mrs. Austin up there. She's currently at a water park, taking time away from her family to have this meeting with us. So nobody wants that, including Mrs. Austin, to be up on the screen. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. We are here this evening to discuss our anticipated referendum renewal. Dr. Greiner.
Yes, we have Mr. Jeff Daylor with Daylor PR, who's going to be facilitating this meeting with the board, and with him's Dave Berry. And I'm going to turn it right over to Mr. Daylor so that he can get us moving in the direction he plans to take us today.
Good. Thank you very much, Dr. Greiner.
You're welcome.
And members of the board. Again, I'm Jeff Daylor. With me is Dave Berry. We have been working on school district referenda for about 15 years. We've worked on about 37 of them. It is, most superintendents will tell you that, I worked on a referendum one time. It took 2 years off my life. I don't know why I do this, but I do enjoy getting to know a unique community. Every community is unique. We start with kind of the way that we do things, but we overlay that with the unique community to be able to tailor something that works for you. And it's really important to me to make sure that you get that authenticity of kind of the voice of the community that shows through how we communicate with people. Thank you very much to the tech department for getting the slideshow up here, and we'll kind of go through here. Remember slide 35. Oh, good. I get total control now. Remember slide 35. It has the most important piece of this whole thing on here, and it's a hidden bullet point. I bet you'll be able to find it when we get there. So tonight we will do some introductions, and mostly we're going to tell you about us. But then I also want to hear from each of you as well. We're going to do some building trust. We're going to talk about what your current situation is. We're going to talk about how we would typically run a referendum. And then we'll talk about timeline, roles, and next steps. And we want to make sure that everyone knows that we all have a role to play when it comes time to communicate about a referendum. So if you don't mind, I've shaken all of your hands. I know a little bit about each of you, but if we could just kind of go around the room, and starting left to right, Lawrence, would tell me again how many you got kids in the schools, and what's your connection? How did you end up on the school board?
Yes, I have 2 kids. I have been in this community for about 11 years, and I have 2 kids in our school since they're kindergarten.
Okay.
I have been one since upcoming will be 8th and 9th grade. So they have been 2 kids have been here almost 10 years, 8 years, 9 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have also been in this community for about 10 years, and I think that's kind of things we can this public service just through this board to help our schools and our students. That's something I think. as an incentive. So yeah,
Is,
thank you.
yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, Lawrence. Tom?
Sure. Tom Schott, been at Purdue for 33 years, been in the community for that amount of time. 10th year on the board. My wife and I, 2 sons are West Side grads. My wife is a longtime teacher and coach at the junior senior high school. So very vested in the community and the school district.
What does she teach and coach?
Teaches chemistry and coaches girls basketball.
All right. Does she have any undue influence over you?
I never took chemistry in high school somehow, but yet graduated. And I can probably beat her in horse
Okay.
on a good day. So. She's not here, is she?
Yeah. All right, Daisha, you told me that you've got 4 children, and so that's amazing. Two kids here in schools right now. The other 2 graduated from here too, right?
Exactly. Yep. We moved here in 2007 when my oldest was starting kindergarten.
Okay.
So I've been here since. 2 have graduated, an 8th grader and a junior. And I just have been heavily involved in the schools on parent council and other volunteer roles, and then taught in the elementary school for several years, kindergarten and 1st grade.
Cool. One of the things that we always like to do is work with, if it's booster clubs, if it's parent-teacher organizations, if it's whatever. So I want to make sure that we're looped in to be able to make sure that these groups of people know what's going on.
We have all those in our community, and they're phenomenal.
Yeah.
So they're
Okay.
very supportive of our schools and do a great job.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you. Now, ordinarily, Amy Austin would be next, so I can ask Amy. Amy, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, about how long you've been on the board, how many kids you have in the district?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yep. Can you?
Okay, great. Hi. I have 3 children in West Lafayette schools. We've lived here since the 90s, long before we had kids, and our kids started kindergarten at West Side, and I've got a rising senior. So we've had the full experience. And I've been on the board for 2.5 years. Before that, I was also very involved with parent council. I was president at Willis and secretary at Willis. And did a lot with the teachers there and with the parents there, and had a really good experience. And so when the opportunity came to run, I said, sure, that sounds like fun.
Cool. Very good. Thank you. I appreciate it, Amy. And thank you for joining, while you're traveling. I know that's an extra commitment, and so I really appreciate you doing that. Rachel?
Thank you.
Sure. I graduated from West Lafayette High School in '88. Don't do the math, please. I have 6 children. 2 graduated from Lafayette schools, and I have 2 who've graduated from West Lafayette schools, and I have a sophomore and a senior this year. I've been on the board about 9 years, like many others, very engaged in different aspects of the school corporation. It started on the board, I believe, the year my youngest was in kindergarten, and so here we are, still on the board. But we do have a wonderful community, an incredible supportive community, so it is an honor to serve our students here.
Okay. Daisha said she had 4. I was like, congratulations. So I got to say congratulations to you too.
The ability to multiply does not qualify us to be on the school board, but it does add a lended flavor to it.
There
So.
you go. Okay. All right. Thank you. Brad, do you prefer Bradley or Brad?
Hey, I'll answer.
Okay. All right. Just not late for dinner.
Yes. Okay. Hey, so I, first reason I'm associated with West Lafayette School Corporation, because my wife, Deborah, went to West Lafayette High School, as did her father, as did her brother.
Oh my.
So that's how we got to this community, and we've been here for over 20 years. I got on the school board about 15 years ago through a task force that we formed to basically take note and examine our financial situation. Looking out the windshield, we identified that we were going to have a financial challenge coming our way due to the funding formula, level of enrollment.
This is that 2009-10 area.
Yeah, somewhere in there. So we knew that we were going to need to put that on the plate
And so that became one of the ideas and concepts that developed from that committee. Another concept that developed from that was our West Lafayette Schools Education Foundation, which gave patrons in our community the opportunity to invest and support financially our school corporation. And we needed that because, after all, a general fund referendum is in fact a campaign. So that was helpful, and it really brought our community together to support our first general fund referendum. And as you know, we're in our second one, and that hasn't changed. The financial need that we have still very real today, and it has a lot to do with our funding formula and the funds that we received and the shortfall that we have with regard to our expenses. So that's a lot of the reason I'm here. I have 2 kids that have gone through the system. They've since graduated. I have a son that's in medical school at IU. I have a daughter that's a nurse practitioner. And we credit the experience that we had at West Lafayette for helping them get there. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, very good. So here's Taylor PR. A while ago, about a couple of years ago, we realized that we had been asking superintendents of school corporations to please have a strategic plan. It's really important. And then we realized that we didn't have one at Taylor PR. And then we said we probably ought to have one. We're going to advise our school corporations to do this. So we did that, and our mission statement for our core focus is to improve communities through exceptional public relations, marketing, and strategic counsel. And so while mostly it says Taylor PR, yeah, it's PR, but it's also, well, when you look at our core values, when we say trusted and experienced, that means that there's a lot of creating going on. The experience part, I see some of you, nodding that yeah, you're experienced as well, and so we feel like we have been around school superintendents for 20 years. Some of us, there's one person that works for us that has been around school superintendents for longer, because he's got 40 years in public education. He was a school superintendent at two different districts. And so we're here to help coach your administrative team through some of these challenges that maybe they haven't experienced before. And so yeah, we do public relations and marketing, but we also help with advocacy as well. So our niche is public sector. We do work for other agencies besides schools, but our sweet spot is public school districts, because I was a communications director at a school corporation. Dave was communications director. We get to a slide where Dave gets to talk. And a number of the rest of our team, communications directors at school districts, we know what this is like. So we have a passion for public education. I really believe that it is the foundation of our democracy, to have every kid have the ability to be educated. I think that's really important. So, trusted and experienced, we are passionate and principled problem solvers and very committed counselors, and there's more to it than alliteration. There's the 4 of us here that will be the team that works with you all. And that's me pre-pandemic, when I looked somewhat more respectable. And then I'm now living in Louisville, Kentucky. I lived in Indianapolis in Lawrence for about 7 years. My wife is an Episcopal priest. She was called to serve a church there. She's now been called to Louisville, so I lived there. Moved there about 3 months ago. Dave, tell us your story.
Well, I've been working with Jeff on a lot of school referendum, school communication issues for about the last 3.5, 4 years now. I work part-time. I am semi-retired, and this part semi that I'm not retired. I'm working with Jeff. Before semi-retirement, I was a communications director for a high school district in suburban Chicago for 10 years. Before that, I was in newspaper journalism for 30 years before the business models we all know became basically untenable. And I thought if I ever did something other than, if you talk about public education being kind of bedrock of democracy, I think the other part of that is free flow of accurate information. And so that's sort of been my career course. And I always knew that if I did something other than daily journalism, I would want it to be in the public education field. That's part of my family background. I'm actually the only member of my immediate family who was not a teacher or professor or a school administrator at some point in his career. So that's my background. That's where my values and interests are.
Terribly sorry to interrupt you. Dr. Yin was able to join us. Can you hear and see Dr. Yin? Are you able to hear and see correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. I can see and I can hear. Thanks.
Okay.
Dr. Yin, I'm Jeff Taylor. I'm your guest speaker today, along with Dave Beery. And one of the things that we asked each of the board members just a minute ago was to please share a little bit about yourself, if you've got children in the school district, how long you've been on the board, what drew you to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, as you know, my name's Yue Ying, and I work at the University of Illinois in Chicago. But I live in West Lafayette because my husband works at Purdue. And we have 3 kids, and our son is 15 years old, and he will be in 10th grade. And our first daughter is 13, and she will be 8th grader. And our second daughter is 10 and a half, and she will be the 5th grader. And the reason, I have been a board member for 2.5 years. And the reason I run for school board because I want to help improve the education for all the kids, not only my own kids.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. And I also appreciate that you were willing to be as committed as you are. I understand you're overseas, and I have no idea what time it is there, but I bet it's not a reasonable time. So thank you for your commitment to be here.
Not too bad. It's 6. The meeting starts at 6:30 in Japan time. I'm in Tokyo for a conference.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, 6:30 is, not too bad, but yeah, it's.
Yeah,
but,
in the morning.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate that you were able to join us. That's wonderful. So, Ron is on our team. Jane is on our team. Jane will do a lot of the behind the scenes kind of writing and research work. Dave is the kind of the primary writer, and then Dave and I work on strategy together. This is too many words, but the bottom line is that we use this 4-step communications process of research, planning, implementation, and evaluation. It's incredibly important before you put a plan together to do some research. And so one of the things that we prefer to do is when we can, we like to do a community opinion survey. So if we're able to do that, I would like to do that. We also do some phone interviews with key kind of opinion leaders in the community to learn more about the community, to learn more about what people see as the strengths and weaknesses, opportunities, threats of the school corporation itself. So we use that as we put together a communications plan. We implement the plan, and then we check in to make sure that people are hearing us. And it's a two-way street communication business. We want to hear from people to make sure that they are understanding, what we're trying to say. We do other stuff besides referendums. It would get really boring if all we did were elections, and so we look for other opportunities to help. And so these are some of the things that we work on. One of the things that is important to us is that a referendum website is available, and it has. I guess I follow this tenet that we use in communications is the 3-second reader, the 30-second reader, and the 3-minute reader. You gotta have something for all these people. So the 3-second reader is gonna read the headline, and it better say something, because if it doesn't, then they're gone, and you've missed your opportunity to communicate with those people. The 30-second reader will read the headline, and then they will read the next paragraph or two. And then the 3-minute reader will actually click through to the website and read everything on the page. Maybe they'll read the whole website. Sometimes they'll go further. You gotta have something for all of those people. Even though the 3-minute reader is rare. To be honest, the people's capacity to really in-depth understand a situation or an issue is challenging, because we are so strapped for time that most of us are 3-second and 30-second readers for most things. If you're passionate about something, you might read more. So we want to make sure that there is something more for those people who are passionate. And so we would recommend that we do something that follows along with some of these things that we've done for other school corporations in the past. We like to do video when we can. Again, it's an extra cost. But for me, video is the second best thing to being there. And so when you can do that, it's good. It also reaches people the place that people are now in social media. And what we've got, our understanding from the analytics that we have is that if you have a video on a Facebook page, you're about 10 times more likely to be able to watch that video than you are to even look at a post that just has a photograph or a graphical image of some kind. So it's a way to communicate where people are. We like to do a marketing e-newsletter. We're in the process of gathering information from the school corporation, from administration, to learn about all of the ways that the school corporation is communicating now. If we're not using a marketing e-newsletter, I'd like to if we can. So that's another thing that we would recommend. And we do a unique brand for the referendum for it's campaign branding, so that when you get something in the mail, or you see something on social media, you see a brand that identifies that as a referendum thing. And now you can say, okay, I've seen this before, and I'm getting a hint that this is about the referendum. I should read this now if I'm interested in our topic. This was a brand that we did for a school corporation, but give the picture. Interestingly, these 3 examples of direct mail pieces, I don't see that the brand is covered up. Although we did referendums in 2020 for Benton County, just north of here, and their tagline was "Our community, our schools, our legacy, our future." That came out of discussions with the community, and what the community told us is, and we were just talking about this about Kokomo. Our population is declining. Fewer people live here. Enrollment is dropping. We feel like our community, what Benton County was telling us was, we feel like our community is in danger of going away. And our schools need to be a reason for people to continue to live here. And so therefore, we need to invest in our schools. So that's where that tagline came from. We did the research to learn more about that community, about what was important to them. And so that's where that came from. So that's what we want to try and do here, is learn more about who you are in order for us to capture something that can be to tell us who we are, but also look at the future at the same time. We often do, we're not doing that here, sort of a pre-referendum timetable. And so we like to get on board earlier when we can. It doesn't happen all the time. And so we would often do a lot of community engagement up front. That's what first, if you're doing a November referendum, we would use the first half of the year to do that. When we start later, now we kind of, and we're going to move April and May into July. And so we're going to start working drafting a communications plan on a timeline. We're also going to start working simultaneously on, can we find somebody to be on a committee that can be our advocates? And I'll talk more about that in a minute when we get into kind of more of the strategy. There's a variety of things here that help us to get the message out to people. Some of this is devoted more towards the committee of advocates. Others is devoted towards what is the school corporation going to communicate. All right, this is just a standard presentation. Okay. So I'm an APR. APR means Accredited in Public Relations through the Public Relations Society of America. It's like a little mini master's course. It's as far as I could get beyond a bachelor's. Everybody else usually has more degrees than I do. But the APR thing, it counts a couple of different things in your head. One is the 4-step communications process: research, planning, implementation, evaluation. The other is, these are mutually beneficial relationships that you're developing between your publics and you, your organization. It's critical that there is that relationship, that you all who are running the place are working with your publics to make sure that you've got a relationship where you have an opportunity to know what the needs are in your community and to execute that from the board level. This Cutlip and Center wrote the book, and then that was in the 50s, and then Glenn Broom took over and put out new editions as things were updated to kind of, when social media happened, for instance, when the internet happened, when all these things happened, that Cutlip and Center could only imagine in their wildest dreams, probably. We're about to get into the interactive section. So why communicate at all? Why do we do that? And for a school corporation, there's a lot of things that you could come up with quickly. Retaining resident students, building community support to help you like in a referendum. Creating understanding so people know what it is that you're doing. Maintaining or improving staff morale, it's good business, it's just good business. But this is the key thing that you try to achieve with your community is you want people to trust them. And Lawrence and I were talking about this. He said when you send your kids to school, you have to have a certain amount of trust in that organization that your kid is going to come home safely. And they're going to come home having learned something. That's a lot of trust that people have in school district. This is really, there's a lot of industries where people have to trust in that organization to deliver on the promises that it's making. This is a big one. Schools really are important, and they need to have a trusting relationship with their community. So this is the discussion time, and I really truly do want all of us to participate in this discussion for all of you. And this is, and you know what, if you want to use examples of the school corporation and its publics, or if you want to use just an example of you and your children, or you and, in a working relationship, what does a trusting relationship look like to you all? And you're not off the hook. Those of you on video, you guys can participate too.
Go ahead, Amy.
I think in order for the community to trust the corporation, we have to have a unified message, and we all have to be singing from the same hymnal, as my grandma would have said. If we're not doing that, then I think it shows a lack of continuity that makes people lack trust.
So yes, unified message. I love the singing from the same hymnal, knowing my wife's work, and also that I'm the bass in the choir.
So I think one thing that is important in a trusting relationship, because things go wrong in life. Things aren't perfect. There are different opinions and different viewpoints. And so for me, trust comes from our community knowing if they have a problem, that they can come to us and ask for answers and get what they need. And I think that for me, that really centers around getting them to the right person. So nobody would ask me about, what the fourth grade math curriculum looks like. I would not be the person to ask. So understanding that process of going to the teacher and then going to the principal and then escalating, that pattern of good escalation that gets somebody the best answer fastest, that to me is key to trust, that process of problem resolution.
I think we need to demonstrate through factual data why it is that we need what we're asking for, so that it's in plain sight, everyone can see it, understand it, and it has to be repeated. Consistency.
Another one of those things that we talk about in PR is the 3 C's, clear, concise, and consistent. So it's important that all of us, use, like this is kind of singing off the same song sheet. And so, but your point though, factual data is available, and so yes, I like that. Thank you, Brent.
Well, we flip it, but a trusted relationship looks like the last referendum, the 96% voted for it. You gotta make sure that the need is still there, whereas show that it's still very much in need. You got an administration here, running a first-class school district that needs their support to keep doing what we're doing.
Good, I appreciate that. I haven't done the math. I've never looked back in the history. I can't imagine that a school district has ever done better than. Yeah. I mean, that's amazing. That's trust. So yeah, and that's part of what does a trusting relationship look like? Well, it looks like that when people give you that kind of support. What is it that it took to build that? How did how did this school corporation get to that point? And so this is kind of that, and maybe first let me ask, Daisha, you didn't get to say anything yet, so let me finish. What does a trusting relationship look like, and we'll get to what fosters the trusting relationship.
Oh, I think a lot of it is earning that trust. I look a lot at, 96%. If we think, we want to get to that again, we've got to show that we did what we said we were going to do. And, through our actions, it's not just saying trust us, it's actually showing and earning that trust from the community.
Dr. Yin, did you have anything to add to this one?
So for me, I think it's important to have transparency. And so for a lot of decisions, and also I think it will be helpful to have the community engagement. So the community have a way to voice their opinions and to participate in the decision-making process. And also, I think it would be helpful to have an accountability system. And so, to evaluate different the approaches, whether, and to collect the feedback and those things.
I heard Dr. Yin, I heard engagement and opinions and accountability. Those are great words. Anything you would add to that? Am I capturing that correctly?
Transparency, engagement, and accountability.
Yep, got it. Good, thank you.
Thank you.
So what fosters a trusting relationship? So we kind of know, and I think that's what Dr. Yin is talking about is kind of where we're going. If a trusting relationship looks like 90-something% support of a referendum, how do we get there? How did we manage to attract that kind of support? Why were people so supportive of the district? Why did they trust it so much?
Are you asking us to tell you why we think that? I'm not sure I'm following your question. Is there a
Yeah.
question? Yeah, sorry.
I think if we like literally look at that last election, from what I understand, in 2010 was the first one, right? And you were at 60-something%, which is, to be honest, in a school referendum is like a landslide win. And then you went to 94, whatever that 90-something%. So you moved up the ladder. First of all, I don't know that we can top it, so we'll get everything as close as we can. But you moved up the ladder. What was the difference between 2010 and 2017? Maybe that led to more trust.
There were a couple of key things. One, we have great schools, and we have to. That's what we're out there working for, is great schools. There was another thing that happened strategically that was different between the first and second referendum, and Brad probably could talk about this a little better than I can, but as part of our process, our superintendent at the time went and spoke with, in particular, landlords to make sure they understood the math and what the implication would be, because there was confusion about that in the first round. And the second round, right out of the gate, they worked hard to make sure that those property owners knew exactly how the money would play out and could support a referendum. And subsequently, they did support the referendum, and I think that was a key. This was the second time we'd been through it, and we have a very engaged community, and they value the schools, and they showed up. They showed up for us to show that. So, I don't know, Brad, would you?
Yeah, she's right. In the first referendum, we actually faced well-financed challenges. Okay, and they were very well organized and outspoken. They bought television commercials. So, we countered that with not just our own media campaign, but we had town hall meetings where we invited the public in to explain the economics behind this referendum, why we, and that was an open exchange. I can think of one meeting where patrons stood up in there and pointed to the data that we're putting on the screen and lamented, I'm 10% of that number. Big figure. But after having the opportunity to explain how it all works, we changed that tide, and in fact received advocacy from some of the same people that were saying, don't do this, this is going to kill us. That they're still present. Okay, we still have a huge percentage of investment real estate, and this is a real number that they need, that they're contending with. But you've heard the expression, a rising tide lifts all boats. So I think some of them began to realize that actually some of their patrons and their customers actually came from the very community that they have investment real estate. And so it actually can help them in a way to support the corporation. So that's a long-winded answer, but that's, I think, how we came from 65% to 96%.
Appreciate that. This kind of history helps me to learn more. That's great.
Pretty unique in that, community members who no longer, or maybe never did, have children or grandchildren in the district value the school district. So it's not just, that's 70% of our community, probably, whatever the figure is, but obviously the 30%, most of them value having their kids go to our schools, but it's that other faction that sees the value of the success of our school.
Mm-hmm. And it's the majority of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's the case everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a particular thing that people who don't have kids in school would cite as the reason why they should support a referendum?
I think that many are academically minded because of our proximity to Purdue. Yeah, and I think that there's also the benefit of property values and understanding the community. Those things matter. You want to live in a community with great schools.
Houses rarely get listed before they're sold.
It can be challenging, right? If you want to move here, yeah, how can you actually find a house that's available? Yeah, okay, yeah.
And a school, well, it's not, the schools are a huge part of that.
Sure, sure.
It's also a huge contributing fact in the economy. So if you look at the local economy and you think about the amenity package that we have to offer, school corporation is a very real part of that. If you stood back and looked at this from a distance, you would say that this is, if you had the prospect of moving, you would say that this is an attraction. This rings true. And keeping this district strong resonates with the larger community. It's part of the fabric, if you think about it. It's almost inescapable. Now, what I mean by that, take a look at our fire trucks sometime and look what color they are. They're not just red, they're scarlet and gray. There's a reason behind it. Our mayor has a West Lafayette letter jacket on. So that's part of the fabric.
I'm writing down scarlet and gray because, of course, now we know what branding we're using.
Amy, go ahead. Mrs. Austin.
To add to what Brad just said, as an employer, the strength of our schools helps us attract high-quality employees to the area. So I think that's a major factor for me. And for a lot of people who don't necessarily have children in school, and a lot who do.
So, Amy, you're saying that a good school district produces high-quality employees that local employers can take advantage
Exactly.
of. Great, great. Okay, what gets in the way of a trusting relationship?
Well, I think this is actually where we're at today is, we look at where we were at in 2017 and had huge community support. And right now, the community does not feel the same way. They feel like the money from the 2017 referendum was not used as it was stated. And so there's many in our community that have lost trust in our school district because of the way the finances were managed. And, there's a lot of details even in the question itself. And so I feel like we are in a different position today than we were in 2017.
Could we ask for some data to back that up?
To back up the data?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, our class sizes have gone up and we said we would maintain class sizes.
No, I'm talking about data. I'm talking about actually.
Yeah, Sean, I had asked Sean for the class size data, so you can ask him about that. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm asking you what the data is.
About class sizes?
Yeah.
About the community not trusting us.
What you're
Yes.
you're talking about, Ms. I'm just trying to understand
Yeah.
how the 2017 referendum funds weren't used for the intended purpose. I'm trying to understand.
So tell me, what was the stated purpose of the 2017 referendum?
I'm actually asking you the question.
Well, right, and I'm saying one was class size, retain teachers, and then educational and academic programs.
So you got
So-
data on, we have fewer teachers or we have larger class sizes? or-
If Sean
Okay.
shared the data with all the school board members, and I would love him right now, he can share what are the class sizes right now, and that should be who's sharing the data.
Here's the distinction I think is missing in this part of the conversation regarding class sizes. It's not what is our class size this year versus last year. It is what is our class size now versus what it would be if we did not have the referendum. So when we are going to the community to say we are looking for a referendum so that we can keep our class sizes low, that is not with the intent or at no point has anyone ever promised that we would somehow reduce class sizes. What we've done is said, we want to keep class sizes low. And so in doing that, we need a referendum. Without that, we've estimated class sizes could be anywhere an average of 40. Is that probably inaccurate? That's kind of a ballpark.
We'd
It's
have
hard to
look and
estimate. It depended on, yeah.
Determine where we were going to cut.
Yeah.
what that would look like.
So I think it's what I'm hearing you say, I'm not understanding is an apples to apples comparison. I'm hearing you say I want lower class sizes, the referendum should fix that. We promised that as a board, but we didn't ever promise that as a board. That was never part of what was said to the community. So I appreciate you raising the concern, because I think it is important to clarify to the community and the information what it would look like for us if we didn't have the referendum in terms of class sizes, because it would be untenable.
One of the things I'm hearing you, Brad, say is that, okay, show me the facts. And one of the things that we know in public relations is that there's facts and then there's perception, and perception becomes reality sometimes. So the question I have is, for this particular issue, what is the truth and what are the perceptions? And so this is the reason why I feel a community survey would be useful to us, to know more about what does the community know about what we're doing and all of that. So Deja, what I'm hearing you say is, between 2017 was the last one, and now there've been stuff that's gone on. Did we really follow what we said we were going to do in 2017? And that is critical. When I was working at Robbinsdale area schools in the Twin Cities in Minnesota, and I was working on a referendum in 2007, and we realized that before our referendum after our 2001 referendum, we never told people that, one, thank you, and two, this is how we're spending the money. We're spending it the way that we said we were going to. And it was a critical error, and we lost. Now, we also lost because we had a whole lot of other things going on, including the vote bill committee had hired a guy from Iowa who's called a referendum killer. And he spread a bunch of misinformation amongst our senior population that was racist and horrible. So there was all sorts of other things that were the result of that. But the thing was, we realized that this is what we did with your money. It's really important. Now, I have to look back and see what the communications are like. Have we said anything about how we spent the money? But so that's an important thing, is to know, is reality and perception, do they match or not? So I think that research is going to be really important.
I think what I see here from the community is, I don't think anyone in the community doubts if we didn't get the referendum, the class sizes would go up huge. That's not a messaging that I feel like our community, our teachers, our parents are unaware of. To me, what is going on is, in the purpose of the 2017 referendum, it said maintain class sizes. Yeah, class sizes have gone up. And so to me, it's listening to our teachers and our parents and looking at the data and saying, what did we promise and where are we at? And so I think seeking the community input and teacher input on that will be valuable.
So what I hear you're saying about what gets in the way of a trusting relationship is when someone or an organization maybe takes an action that is different than what it promised. For the rest of us, what are other things that might get in the way of a trusting relationship? And again, whether that's about West Lafayette schools or if it's some other example from your relationships that you all have with others.
Mrs. Austin, go ahead.
One, going back to the previous discussion, one nugget of information I think is critical to publicize. We learned at the Indiana School Board Association conference that we were the only school district that started last school year with no teacher vacancies. In spite of some of the rumors that have been spread about our school district, we were the only one out of 290 that didn't have a single open seat as we started this past school year. And I think that speaks very well of our commitment to our students and our teachers, and of the working environment we have for our teachers. So we should probably publicize that.
Actually, so Amy, I think what I'm hearing you say is what would get in the way of a trusting relationship would be not communicating very often. Is that maybe part of what you're saying?
Absolutely. I think we have been very busy with onboarding a new administration, and very understandably, some of the things we could have been shouting from the rooftop have gotten pushed aside. And I think that as we go into the referendum, it's important to make sure that the public knows that a seat at a desk in a classroom in West Lafayette is one of the most desirable seats in the state for our teachers to seat. And that we are doing a good job of attracting high-quality educators to our community.
First of all, it's amazing. Every industry is short of everybody, so that's pretty cool that you that you all were able to fill all your vacancies. So Amy, I think you make a really good point there. That what can get in the way of a trusting relationship is just not communicating very well, so good. Thank you for that.
Dr. Yin, go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, I'm thinking, to evaluate the success of education system or the efficiency of spending the current referendum money, there must be multiple indicators to show that. And so in addition to the class size, and we have some other indicators, for example, the success of the extracurricular activities and the high quality of the teachers and the staff members, and also we in the recent year and with the current administration, and we managed to increase the salary for both teachers and staff members and basically everybody. I think all those information should be conveyed to the public. And also when I communicate with the public, I also kind of shared what I learned after I became a board member about the challenges our school district is facing, for example, the size. And we are small in compared with many other school districts like TSC, LSC, and because of the small size, and then sometimes we don't have the skill effect, right? So that means with the limited amount of money, and we probably won't be able to offer that many options and as some other districts. And so I found when I share, kind of make it more transparent and people can understand it better. Because many times, and there's a lack of information from the public's perspective, and then I feel to make it transparent and also showcase all the achievements we have made with the resources available to us, and I think that's very helpful. Also, we need to be very grateful and to express our gratitude to the community for their generosity, and I think that would be very helpful too.
Yeah, I think what I want to check in with you to make sure that I'm hearing you correctly. If I can summarize, maybe what you're saying is the whole truth is important. We want to celebrate the achievements. We want to share what the challenges are. And then, and then your last point, which I thought was really good too, that you just said seconds ago, and now it's all of a sudden it's gone through my head. Well, okay, so the whole truth. We want to keep people.
Yeah, express our
thanks, our
for
gratitude.
the public generosity, and their generosity help us to over at least to some degree the challenges that facing us.
Exactly.
I think that's many times people don't necessarily know the challenges that we are facing, and because of the small size, because of the the landlocked situation. You know, we don't have enough inventories of the houses and for people to buy. So we, you know, the ADM can be an issue. And but surely on the other hand, you know, I think there definitely room for us to improve, to attract more students, even within our district, to attend our schools. I just like to be kind of honest with the public regarding, you know, the problems and, you know, the achievement and all those things. I feel communication will be very helpful.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, let's move on. Before I ask some questions here, actually, I was going to go to this first before we did the discussion. But in Monroe County Community School Corporation, Dr. Jeff Hauswald uses these group norms with the Referendum Advisory Committee. They're also the same group norms that they use in kindergarten. Which I thought was hilarious, that he would walk through with all these adults that were there in the Referendum Advisory Committee, that we are going to get along. We're not going to argue. We're going to respect one another. We're going to have on-task behavior. And it's that script font is hard to read, but it says task talk only there. Use quiet voices and participate. I don't know if maybe you've got group norms for your school board meetings already. If you don't, here's a recommended thing that Dr. Hauswald would ask you to follow. So I was going to do this before we did this discussion, but you all did pretty darn good. Anyway.
It's as simple as it seems. I guess I would say that don't argue doesn't mean don't express disagreement. It means
Absolutely.
be respectful in whatever the conversation is.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So now, in the context of the school corporation as public, what are the results of a trusting relationship? I kind of feel like we pretty much hit all this. Unless anyone has anything else that they would want to share, I think we might just get past this. Are we good? All right, very good. Okay. Gladys the elephant is the star of a little teeny little story that I told my kids when they were 2 years old. I made it up on the fly during going to bedtime. And it really is just to illustrate that we're now going to talk about the elephant in the room. So now you all know what things have been like at school board meetings lately. I have been filled in on what things have been like at school board meetings lately. I understand that there have been challenges. I'm hopeful that we can work together. This was from Dave Banger's column, and I know that you all remember this, that at one point a member of a dwindling audience in the elementary school multi-purpose room interrupted and asked you to knock it off and move on. Thinking about our norms, what is the impact of this behavior on the school corporation's relationship with your publics? And by the way, I'm not shaking my finger at anybody. I'm shaking my finger at everybody. All right. So this is not any one person. This is about all of us. We all have to get together and decide whether or not we choose to get along.
Mrs. Austin, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I think the main thing that occurs when we have disagreements in public the way we have been is that it shakes the staff and the teachers' trust in us and also the superintendent's trust in us to do what's best for the schools. I think a lot of people have been very concerned about whether or not people in our central office are going to stay because of the tenor of our discussions over the last several months. And that makes everyone feel unsafe and uncomfortable. And we really need to understand how board meetings work, how agendas work, how the the process of the meeting exists the way it does for a reason, and it's not to hide information, it's for efficiency and to get through a great deal of information in a short time. When we have pedantic, silly conversations about things like where we're going to approve the agenda, it causes the public and our staff and our teachers and even our students at a level, because I've had kids come to me and ask me what the heck is going on. It shakes everyone's confidence in us, and it makes us less successful by virtue of just looking foolish. And we need to stop it.
Thank you, Amy. Others?
I just the term embarrassment.
May I say something?
Tom just started speaking, UA, and then you can go. Go ahead, Tom.
I just think our behavior in the last 7 months, 6+ months has been embarrassing, and you made an excellent point, not pointing a finger at anybody, but at all of us. And I continually commend Dr. Greiner and his staff for keeping our schools functioning at such a high level in spite of us. And Amy's point, teachers are concerned because they see the actions, they hear about what goes on. I don't know that we'll ever all become friends, but we have to figure out a way to coexist and put our personal agendas aside for what ultimately is our mission, and that is to do what's best for our students. We've got a long way to go to do that.
Dr. Yin, you can go ahead now.
Thank you. Frankly speaking, I don't think the disagreement will impact the referendum that much, because probably the public can see, even if we disagree on many issues, and we all agree on one thing, which is the referendum is needed. And so that's good. But on the other hand, frankly speaking, I feel the board is quite dysfunctional. And first of all, I really appreciate Mrs. Witt's hard work. And I know you have done so much in the past year and a half. On the other hand, to be honest, I feel your working style may not kind of help with this complicated relationship, and to some degree, and what you have done sort of worsen it. In fact, for example, in the last meeting, you literally made a long presentation to elaborate how bad and 3 of the board members are, and so publicly criticize a public who asked for access to some information and say basically she wasted the public money or something. And so I feel this is kind of odd. I don't think that's very helpful. Again, I really appreciate a lot of your work you have done. As for the leadership role, I feel at least the current style you have been using is not that helpful. It kind of make the relationship even worse, I feel, to some degree. And because I think we all share the same aim that we want to help the school district to improve, and that's a common ground that we really can agree on that. And from that perspective, we move forward. And when people have suggestions, those things, and try not to be defensive, and try not to assume those people have some bad intention or something, and then it will really make things worse, I feel. And we need to believe in each other, that all of us, and want to do good things for our schools rather than some individual agenda or whatever. And I think, yeah, we definitely need to change the dynamic of the board relationship, and in some way, not necessarily for the referendum. Really, I have confidence in that. I feel our community will continue to support us. And so we should be good there.
Thank you, Dr. Yin. Others?
But this like working
Still going? I'm sorry.
environment is not present, and so I think it should be changed.
Okay. Thank you. Others? What is the impact of the behavior that we're talking about on the school corporation's relationship with your publics? Maybe think about it as I've heard staff, teachers, students. What other publics are there?
Well, I'll just say, the gentleman that stood up in our meeting the other night was basically saying, you guys need to get over yourselves and focus on what's really important here, which is our students. Think about this. None of us can act on our own. We can't create any change. We can't move the needle. We can't do anything on our agenda unless we act together as a group. We can have different opinions. We can disagree. But at the end of the day, it's about accomplishing the mission for bettering the educational experience for our children of our community. That's the focus. None of us need to have memorialized commentary in stone. I've been here 15 years. No one's had commentary memorialized. Okay? What we document, what we record are actionable events. That's where it begins. That's where it ends. If there's commentary in between, fine. But if we act together, motion's approved, vote's made, and the vote is positive, we move on. We don't have to memorialize or document our own commentary. Who's the beneficiary of that? Is it for the next election? Is it for constituents? What does it do? What purpose does it serve? The answer is nothing, because it didn't help us accomplish our mission at all. That's where I'm at. And the gentleman that stood up here lost his patience. We could have accomplished in an hour what took 3 hours for that reason. That's what he was commenting. Hit us right in the forehead. It's time to stop that.
Thank you, Brett. Others?
I think our behaviors make it.
Dr. Yin, Daisha had just begun speaking. If you could wait for just a moment. Go ahead.
I think it makes community members, teachers, students not feel safe to share their opinions. And as elected officials, our job is to listen to the community. And so we need to have an atmosphere where no matter how you feel on a topic, if you agree or disagree, you feel safe to share that, you feel respected, you feel listened to. And until we can change that behavior, we don't have a lot of community members who feel safe to come and share their input, which we need to improve our schools.
This goes back to our kindergarten norms of being respectful in all of our conversations, each of us.
I think, go ahead, Dr. Yin first, and then I'll add on to that. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. To follow up with what Brad said earlier regarding the commentary, I personally think the commentary was helpful. At the beginning of the meeting, I talk about the 3 things to improve trust, transparency, engagement, and accountability. I feel the commentary served the 3 purposes very well. In fact, if we at the recent history and what we improved, for example, release the board package and change the expensive lawyer to a much more reasonable one, and so to have the new CFO, especially before we hired two CFOs, and now we have one expert CFO. And with for all these changes, I think Dacia's commentary was very helpful in promoting those positive changes and to, and sure, many of those things you can say that's like a teamwork, a collaborative wisdom. But on the other hand, I really appreciate Dacia's persistent effort in pushing those positive changes. Otherwise, those things, problem exist for many, many years, but nobody even very few people paid attention to it, and not mention of changing them. But with the recent commentaries, I can see bigger community engagement, and people feel so much more informed with what's going on in the school district. I think that's a lot of contribution. And so if we talk about improve schools and to make it better for students, I think it totally served that purpose.
So I think it's important to clarify for you, Mr. Daler, that we're talking about two different things. In the meeting where there was conflict, we were speaking about the official minutes of the meeting, which is what Mr. Marley was speaking about. Dr. Yin is talking about Dacia Mumford's political posting website that she runs. Those are separate things, and Dacia's personal writing, while frequently derogatory about me and other members of the board, is not an official document of the school corporation. And that is her opinion document. And she can speak more to that if she would like to, but to talk about what happens and the level of respect and trust that happens among the board members, it certainly is clear that Dacia's writing has harmed the relationships of others on the board and that working relationship because it's frequently personal and attack. And that makes it very difficult to have a trusting relationship among the board. It definitely impacts the board meetings and the work of the board in a negative way. And Dr. Yin has clearly stated that she likes it and appreciates that, but for one board member to have a blog in which they comment upon the work of the board and any individual member makes it difficult to come together. And can blur the lines of appropriate roles for board members and what the board member role is, and can create a large deal of stress and consternation among our staff as well. That's a part of the equation. I just wanted to make sure you were clear that those were separate documents that we're talking about, not any official action of the board that's happening. So.
Thank you. And I haven't heard yet.
A new person, I don't have too much to share. But well, that's great, because I have some off-topic things regarding the class size things. I just, if you want to talk, I can share a little bit about that. You say about, and also I saw Brad and Tom asked the date. So regarding the class size, as you said, probably we need a little bit more research. We collect the class size of our school during the last 15 years. That's what Dacia proposed. And I think that makes sense. We collect data and see the class size change over years, and then we'll see if the referendum money really help us to keep the class size manageable. Because I have been, especially from K-5 classroom, I mean, I have been in there. If you have 2 or 3 kids more, or 2 or kids fewer in that room, doesn't make a big difference for the teachers. So I think class size is quite important, and as you said, maybe we need a little bit more research regarding that as we collect the data, and then we can see if we can the referendum money really used to help to manage the class size. And I think that's if we have more information, straightforward information regarding how we use the 2017 referendum money, compare with the purpose of that referendum, that will be a big help for us to build up the trust, and also to demonstrate the our school and the school board accountabilities, because they paid money for that. We should be accountable to the public fund. So I think that will be something help us to build up trust. But that's off the topic. I don't have anything about this, but you can continue. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you,
Mrs.
Laura.
Lawson's got her hand up, I believe.
Thank you. I do not think that a current short-term referendum campaign is the time to litigate what may or may not have happened during previous elections. And the several folks on this board have a tendency to say the community is concerned about this, the community wants that, when they really mean that that's what they want. And if they were escalating concerns properly through the chain of command, our administration would be aware of concerns about class size or concerns about how money is being spent. But they're not doing that. Instead, they're writing their own commentary and handling it themselves. And so there's no record of anyone having concerns about class size. There's no record of anyone having concerns about spending, other than the people who are sitting on the board who've gotten themselves elected. So I think that this is poorly timed commentary on the part of people who have concerns, and that if the concerns were escalated properly, they could be addressed properly. But during a board meeting isn't the place to address them.
Daisha, the blog seems to me to be maybe the biggest elephant in the room.
Yes.
What's up with the blog? What is the point? What's your purpose? And do you not see it as being in any way detrimental to the board moving forward with its work?
So the history is, when I went to my first school board meeting, the agenda was very vague in what they were discussing. The information that was being discussed was confidential both before and after the meeting. There was really limited or no discussion that went on. When you read the minutes, it shared the votes, the recommendations and the votes. Even our minutes now just said discussion ensued. Having been very involved in the schools, a teacher, I was lost what was going on. So fast forward a few years, when I ran for school board, one of the things I wanted to do when I was on the school board was to help the community understand what was going on and being discussed in this meeting. When there was an agenda item on a resolution, it was like, what are they talking about? So not only giving them access to that information, I wanted to give them some background. Was there conversations before or in it? What was going on? I didn't ended up getting elected, but thought, wait, as a community member, I still can attend the school board meetings and write a summary of what's going on. And so that's what I did, is I just attended a public meeting, wrote my summary, and then I would add, so what I do on it is I add what happened in the meeting, in my view, because I'm writing it. And then I write my view, some background details, and then I send it out to the community members. When I've gotten on the board, and then I put that just on my website. So you can go back and see any school board meeting on that. When I got elected, I have continued to do that. The community has said they appreciate it and feel like they know what's going on. This is also why we are where we're at today. You know, we have 3 board members that have been on our board for 10 to 15 years. And it's just been in the last few months, like UA shared, that the community now has access to the documents. And so to me, it's, I know that there's 4 school board members that don't like that I write it because they don't want the community to know what's being discussed. But I'm not sharing anything that doesn't happen in the public meeting. I don't share things that are happening through emails or anything as a school board member. I'm only sharing that, and I've had the community say they appreciate it. And honestly, if they didn't like it, they wouldn't have to read it. So that's what I'm doing. And yes, I do know that there are 4 board members that don't like it. And my intent is not to harm the board. It's not to harm individuals. My intent is to help the community feel like they're informed, and they don't even have to agree with my opinions. I just want them to be able to have a voice. And when they don't know what's going on, it's hard to have a voice.
How does it make you feel when you hear that it has harm?
Oh, I'm sorry that it has made others feel sad and it's harmed them. I mean, that's not my intent. My intent has never been to go out and cause harm to anyone. But my intent is this is a public meeting, and just because someone can't attend it or doesn't watch it doesn't mean that they can't know what's going on. And so then I have written up that summary. And if it, because the public now knows what happened in this public meeting, to me, it's the actions of the people speaking at this public meeting isn't my fault. And just because I'm choosing to share it, I feel okay with that. And I hope that the things that I'm sharing, and I have shared it with the board before, if there's things that I'm sharing inaccurate or wrong, if they'll point it out to me, I'll go fix it or change it, because that's not the intent. And I'm very open about it. So anyways.
Can we start with the comment you made tonight? The 2017 general fund referendum was used for its intended purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a broad generalization. And that's not helping anyone. Okay, if you lead with that comment and that's all you read to the 3-second reader, then that's all they see in perception is reality.
Yep.
Okay, so the reader might say, what's going on there? Something nefarious went on. But you elaborated and said, no, class sizes went up. Okay, that's a different message than 2017's funds not used for the intended purpose, because we can document that. We have the accounting on where that money came from and where it went. We can document that. But what you said is it wasn't used for its intended purpose. Now that is off track. And the other problem that we have is the editorial that follows along. If you were stating just facts and stopping at that might be one thing, but you're adding editorial comment to it. Some of that's not accurate. Some of it is you haven't taken the time to talk to anyone else that's here. And I've told you before, if we can have a dialogue, well, I'll tell you the answer. And I'll tell you one other thing. There were some of us on the board many, many years ago that thought it'd be a good idea to share the board packets. Okay? But we didn't get it done. Why didn't we get it done? Because we didn't have the votes we needed. Guess what happened now? We voted yes to put it out there. And we did it together. Isn't that something? How when you pull together, that's what we're talking about tonight. It's not that hard. It really isn't.
The reality is that the making of the board packets has been a project, the things that we have done over the past year and a half as a board before you ever came on the board were a result of 7 people coming together to get a job done. There was no single person with magic, right? There wasn't. It was pulling people together, educating, informing, following state law, getting the votes together so that we had a majority to vote. That's what happened. Now, any single member may choose to take credit for that. I'm not taking credit for it because I didn't get it done alone. And Brad's not taking credit for it. He didn't get it done alone. There were a whole lot of things that went into it. My concern with this conversation, how it's happening tonight, is here we are not talking about our referendum and our kids. We're talking about how you feel and how I feel and how Amy feels and how everybody feels. And the reality is we need to get to a point based in fact, focused on students to get a referendum done. And things that distract from that aren't going to get us there. And that's what my concern is. And
I'm glad to hear that everybody is saying, well, we're all together in a referendum, because that's really important. But to Renee's point, this conversation is a very good example of how that message may not come across the community unless we can find some way to work through these, what's generating a lot of noise and attention within this room for the community. So we're gonna need to work on that. I don't have an answer for you tonight. I think that that's something that everybody here needs to think about. Deja, it sounds like I'm picking on you and I don't mean to, but I wonder if you can think a little bit about what the value is of your italicized commentary to the community as opposed to the non-italicized analysis of the meeting. And I'm not going to ask you to talk about that here, but talk about it if you want to, but that's one of the things that I guess that I just encourage you to consider.
I think also, and bullet point 2 there might just be a rhetorical question for now, so that we can move on. It is now almost 7 o'clock. We spent some time talking about who we are and who, as board members, and who Daler PR is, but we spent quite a bit of time on this. I know that if I totaled up the hours that since you all signed a contract with Daler PR, easily 2/3 of those hours would have been spent on, here's our situation at the school board. That's 2/3 of the time when I was not working on the referendum. That's the way it's been for all of you too, and that's putting you in a difficult position to be able to accomplish your mission. Now, am I opposed to having a disagreement? No. Am I opposed to new ideas? Not at all. I want all of us to find the most efficient way to get the mission done of educating children. That is what you're here to do. And while we are consultants and we do advising strategic counsel, you really want someone from the School Boards Association or some other consultant that can help you work through what your roles as board members are and how you can work together. That is better at it than me. My job is to help you communicate with all members of your community what their impact is of a yes vote or of a no vote. That's what we're here to do. So, but we needed to go through this stuff because this is the elephant in the room. This is, when I look at, and we're going to talk a little bit about strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in a little while. When I look at the threats, this is the threat. There might be a few others, but Dave's right. Every moment that we spend not on the subject of let's make sure people know the difference between what happens when you vote yes and what happens when you vote no is a moment wasted on not your mission. You need, students need the revenue that comes from this referendum. And the only way that happens is through a vote by the community on November the 7th. So it is really important that we figure out some way, and you are not the first board. Every single board that I talk to, when I talk to them, I say, for the moment that you vote to put that question on the ballot until November, I don't want anything controversial to occur because that will take people's focus away from what really matters, and that is providing revenue to students. So that's kind of the message. That's what we're trying to get through or get to through this discussion. And again, this I'm going to take this back to my pastor wife, the Episcopal priest, who says, in our world, in the whole the Christian world, we talk about love God and love your neighbor. She says, my job is to love you, but I don't have to like you all the time. So here's what I'm asking for is, can we all just sort of, let's be respectful. Let's love one another. You don't have to like each other, but let's be respectful. Let's do and that is everybody. Everybody needs to see if we can follow those norms. So okay, let's move on to the situation analysis. And here's what's happening here. There's more than 2,400 students in K-12 programs. We've got an elementary, and intermediate, and a junior to senior high school, recognized as high achieving by Niche, by U.S. News and World Report, by the National Association of Music Merchants Foundation. That's pretty darn good. You're fortunate to have higher than the state median of average household gross income. You're fortunate to have a net assessed value per pupil $100,000 greater than the state median. You have a wide diversity of racial makeup, which is awesome. You have, unfortunately, of 290 school corporations in Indiana, you rank 288 for the total state tuition support per pupil. And the circuit breaker credits reduce the operations fund by 31%, and the referendum levy is 18% of the total budget. And this corporation is planning to vote on July 10th on whether or not to go and try to seek a renewal of that operating levy. This is slide 35. Bullet number 3 is the reason that we're here. 18% of that budget is the referendum levy. I talked on Monday to Larry DeBoer, who told me, you know, this is just the way that the legislature has set this up. If your community is doing fairly well financially, they say, well, that community can pay for schools. So that's why you're 288 out of 290. So the referendum levy is 18% of the total budget. What happens if that's not there? Oh my gosh. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars. Michelle, you might know off the top of your head, maybe not.
6.5 million.
6.5 million.
Is that right?
We gave about 7.072
Yeah. Imagine if you divided that number by people at an average of,
2,700.
there you go.
2,700, 2,800.
It's an impact that would be significant, obviously. Again, what I want for a community to know is what happens if you vote yes? What happens if you vote no? And this is really important, right? Now, the good news is that if you fail this time, you can still run next year. Next year's a presidential election. It is so hard to have your message heard in the midst of a presidential election, in the midst of all sorts of other candidates who are going to be talking about what their issues are. So this is the right time to do it, is this November. Because this way, your message is almost the only thing on the ballot. There's a couple other things. Some city council races, an unopposed mayor, that's not going to turn a lot of people out. We want to communicate that this is a big thing for our school corporation. So the political situation is that in 2010 and 2017, here's the numbers, they're spectacular. This is your referendum to lose. If it loses, it's not because your voters don't love you, unless they don't love you for whatever it is that you do now, I think. The previous PAC was politically charged. Let's see if we can change that. We need community advocates. And the reason that we need community advocates is that we have the school who's going to say, well, yeah, we've got 18% of our budget is in the referendum levy, and so we need that to pass. And they're going to say, well, you're paid by the school district. Of course you're going to say that. If you've got advocates who are not paid by the school district, the messenger is as important as the message. So we need advocates to help us. Maybe it's a different group of people than the last time. Voter turnout is not expected to be high. We need to make sure that people know that this is occurring. You'll see in a minute what we think the community, what the school corporation will do in comparison to what does the yes committee do. The county tends to vote Democrat in presidential elections. That actually bodes well for your school corporation. It's a widely known fact that conservatives are less likely to vote for a tax increase than liberals are. again, because the levy doesn't expire next year, a loss would allow West Lafayette to seek approval next year without losing revenue next year. However, it will be harder in a presidential election. We could spend a little bit of time on a SWOT analysis because I do think that it's important for us to think about this. And so you probably all know that a SWOT analysis is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And Dave's got some things written down already. You know, great schools, and you know, a couple of things that are going well for you for the referendum is that situation.
Yeah, we can move on, yeah, we can move on.
But I do want us to remember why families choose to send their kids to West Lafayette schools. There must be a reason. So can we throw out some reasons? What's good? What's going well in West Lafayette and why?
Great community that values education.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Great community, values education. What else?
I'd say dedicated teachers. We have great longevity. We have highly educated teachers and innovative teachers who are willing to really invest themselves in their classrooms.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Larry DeBoer told me that the marching band wasn't very good. Now it's great.
It is it's a very round education, I think, for students, because there's a lot of opportunity in music and arts and athletics, and even some of the other community things that are available are our wellness center, our great Parks and Rec area. Those kind of community partnerships that we have as well are great strengths.
A lot of enrichment, so-called enrichment
Yeah.
programs. Kids get well along. Okay. The March band, I just attended their ceremonies. It's really impressed. So I was impressed. So it's really good. So that's probably about the reasons.
Good.
I think students, their families feel safe in their schools.
You'll see it, yeah. Okay. Good.
And then we have the superintendent. That's very
Good leadership. All right, very good.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Very good. We got a smile out of Dr. Greiner.
Yeah. Miss-
And when I run the campaigns, I pretty much everybody say our current administration is really, really excellent. So it's big asset. We'll keep the forever. Stay
Okay, good.
All right, Mrs. Austin, go ahead.
I've lost an earbud, so I'm having a hard time hearing, but it's a safe, small community. Within a safe, small community, our schools are a place where I feel really confident sending my kids and know that they're going to return home safely every afternoon. Sorry if that's a repeat.
No,
No, you're good.
That was good. Thank you. Safe small community.
Safe space.
I think it's a richly diverse community. It's unique in that sense. And it affords everyone an opportunity to learn from other people and realize that when you get out in the real world, you're going to meet a lot of other people out there. I like that. And I think that the thing that always struck me, it's cool to be whoever you want to be. It's cool to be in band, cool to be in football, cool to be in plays. I mean, it's really cool to do your thing. And it's a place that you're safe doing that. So,
It's a sense of belonging.
Very
in some place.
accepting.
Very accepting, yeah.
yeah.
Inclusive, yeah. Good words.
I know we haven't flipped to the weakness just yet, but I think there's a flip side to that. While we do have great diversity in many ways, we do not have good socioeconomic diversity. And so we don't have much of a middle class because of where property values are. So there's a very low income and there's a higher income. to the point where our teachers really cannot afford to purchase a home inside the school corporation. And I think that that is a weakness and a need that we need to be aware of in our community. Sorry to flip you to the W, but
It's a good transition. It is.
A lot of good stuff here.
Other, teachers, as I said, teachers, some of our teachers very dedicated. In last meeting, we have some teachers serve here 30 years, right, 30 years, many 20, 30 years, very dedicated. That's also kind of trust.
Yeah.
Some kids to school, and they stay here, school 20, 30 years, that means they trust the school and the community to take care of it. So that's a big trust.
Yeah.
That's also strange.
So yeah, I think let's take that as an opportunity to move to weaknesses. What are some of the things that could be better? How can we improve?
School board behavior.
That's what.
he's not wrong.
He's not.
Yeah, I don't, personally, I respect you guys, but personally, I don't think that's weakness. I think it's, we school board, we each one have its own opinions, priorities, and perspectives. So we have some, honest discussions. I would say that for meetings, that's pretty much the only place we do our business. So I think that's quite common. And then with the time move on, I think we will be more collaborative. We will end up with more collaborative, also unified board members. And even under current situation, as Ms. Wade and also Scott think there's weakness, but I think we are kind of during the last 5 years, my observation is we get better. For example, the package releasing things, we work together and make that the data propose that, promote that, advocate that, and say President Mr. Wade, they check with the legal teams and our administration to collect information data which we can release, which we cannot release because confidential information. And we have work sessions, everybody work together, and we reach the consensus. We decide to release the information for the public to see. I think that these things we can little by little we can make better trust in our school board. Then we will end up with collective, unified school board members work together with our school and college. So I think I don't think that's the weakness. I think that's something we can together work on. I will say that. Thank you.
I think a strength is at least one school board member's positive outlook. So good job. That's what we need. There's nothing wrong with being positive and seeing where you can work together.
That's right.
That's marvelous. And so I think that's, even as you think about how you're working together as a board, just like we were talking earlier about making sure that we share share the things that are going well. Think about the things that have gone well, and let's concentrate on those, and then let's try to minimize the other stuff.
That's right. My observation, and also everybody is busy. In this time, we have meetings, we have some limited. So you just go ahead and speak out frankly, honestly, what your opinion is, and that's help us to understand each other, what you consider, what you really value. And that will help us to reach the consensus. We find common ground. Say, for example, referendum. Everybody agree we need that. Then we have some compromise. Something we work together and we negotiate. Quickly reach the consensus. That's kind of typical business of school board. So I don't think. I think it's pretty common normal. So that's my opinion.
And I think that anytime we do a SWOT analysis, we always find that there are some things that fall under two categories at the same time that are opposites. So you may, and part of this is perspective, and Tom's perspective that this is a weakness. The school board behavior can be a strength, you know, and at that Tom and Lawrence, you can both have those perspectives and be right.
Yeah,
And
we
so-
also we also can appreciate each other's opinions.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's I
Okay.
agree. Yeah.
All right, very good. Anything else we want to talk about weaknesses, any challenges that you see that could be in the school district itself, that could be in the community, in the smaller community, could be in the broader community? One of the things that happened when I was helping on the YES committee in 2001 was September 11th, right in the middle of a referendum campaign. And it was a thing that just knocked us off track. I mean, we had to stop for 2 weeks. We're in September, you know, we're a month and a half away from the vote. Now, hopefully we don't have anything as huge as that, that's an external force. But what do you see either internally within the school corporation or externally in the community or in the country that could influence what might happen in a referendum?
I think it's a very compressed timeline, more compressed than we might like. And I also think that getting voters to the polls and making sure that they're engaged and they go out and vote is going to be key to this, because it is going to be such a likely to be a low volume election. And Amy, go ahead. Mrs. Austin.
I'm having a terrible time hearing, but property taxes are set to go up because of property values, and I think it's going to be a difficult ask of people to add to that in certain situations.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Amy, you're right.
Yeah, other things regarding, I prefer not to use the weakness. I think something we can make that better, I would say that. The transparency, basically the information release. For example, I think we did a pretty good job at least during the last 2 years. We released much more information for school operations, but I think we can make that better. For example, the financial information. I checked our school's fund revenue from state back to 2009. So by that year, we got 16 million or 17 million state fund. But last year, we got 16 million. So basically, it's 14 years later, we still didn't catch that amount of money. So that's why we need this referendum.
Yeah.
But the thing is this piece of information, for me, I reached lots of financial data, and then I realized that. But for our community members, they are quite busy. They don't know that. So we need some more openness of our financial information.
Yeah.
So the community can understand, hey, here's the money, here's such cost for each programs, and we don't need propaganda or whatever persuade. We just tell them this is the money we have and this is the service we deliver, and then we really need that referendum. And I think our community members, they are smart enough. They know what's going on. they can make their decisions.
Potentially smarter than the average school district, so.
Yeah, so that's, I think,
Okay.
one thing we can improve.
Yeah.
Hopefully that way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great, very good. Opportunities?
It's a huge opportunity to help our community understand the finances. We've been working towards this for 2 years or longer, and trying to change the way that we do things. And so this is a wonderful focus point, I think, to make sure that we continue that work. So there's been a lot of, transparency became this buzzword, but the reality is that, I don't know, Brad, when's the first time you think you sat in a meeting and said you wish we could release this stuff? Probably 6 years ago?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, at least 6 years ago. And so I think we've been working towards it. And so despite the conflict about various topics and who wants to take credit, for those of us who have experience on the board, it feels very much like a victory. And I think that having the opportunity to go out and continue that work and explain to our community, that is an opportunity to make sure that they understand the work that's been going on and where we're headed. So it's easy to point fingers and complain and assert a position, but to just share information and have those, this is a good time to do it. And even the way that we report it, the way the question is worded, the way that we report it to the state and what the state expects of us from reporting, it's all changed since the last referendum. And so, and our leadership has changed since the last referendum. So all those things are, it's a good opportunity to go out and kind of raise awareness in a positive way with good information. So I'm looking forward to that part of it.
Yes, I will say when we get to threats, Larry DeBoer said it's the language that is required by the state of Indiana on the ballot. We're going to have to do some explaining of what that referendum ballot question says. It's weird. So at the very least, and intentionally destructive at the worst. So yeah.
That's right. Especially, I got the calculation from the auditor, say they have 46.1% increase, right, regarding the
Sure.
the question on the ballot. They say 46.1% increase. So that's kind of a little bit misleading. So we need some explanations for that. So
Right.
I think that's part of the strategy.
Yeah. Yes. You collect the same exact cents per $100 of property value, but it's a 46% increase or whatever. Yes. Okay. How can that be? It seems illogical, doesn't it? You have a smart community though, right? So.
It knows, but there's still need some explanations.
Right. Okay, very good. Other opportunities and threats, let's use them, let's put them together. Other opportunities and threats. Pretty quiet, we're wearing out. All of us are wearing out. It's been a long day, everybody. We're gonna run real quick through kind of what we typically do and talk to you about how this works and has worked for us in the past. You've got a district communications plan and you've got a citizens committee. You've heard me talk to you before about how important it is to have each of them. Here in Indiana, a school corporation can only provide factual information beginning on the date the school board approves a resolution to place a referendum on the ballot. So therefore, on July 10th, after that, there is no advocacy. However, there's always an exception. And so the school board members and the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, the business manager may personally advocate for or against a referendum so long as it is not done by using public funds. I'm actually going to ask, unless it's absolutely necessary, that you all just share facts. Let's have the committee of advocates who are not super connected to the school district be your advocates. Now, if you're in a situation where someone says, you're in a conversation, you're in the line at the grocery store or whatever it is, and someone says, well, you're going to vote yes, aren't you? Yeah, you can tell them, yeah, I'm going to vote yes. And do you need any information? What would you like to know? How can I help you make a decision about how to vote at the polls? You can do this. It's allowable under state code to advocate board members and these administrators. But keep in mind the perception. People are going to say, well, of course you're going to advocate for it. You put it on the ballot in the first place. So that's my philosophy on that.
So a quick question. How do we not use district funds, but yet we're paying for you? Like, how does that line up with that code?
Yes, actually, I'm gonna get
Okay.
through, we're gonna get there.
Okay, I read through these and I didn't see, anyways, okay.
Yeah, so the district informational campaign, the goal is informing people. So there's a couple of things that we're gonna do. They would be, there's typically at least 2 mailings that go to the entire school district. Every resident would receive something that would say, this is information about your school district's referendum. That's different than the yes committee. The vote yes committee, their goal is to win. They're gonna do something different. They're gonna do some kind of targeted campaign to make sure that there are people that they can get to the polls. They're a different animal. They can only use their own money, and they can't, if you're a school board member or a staff member who's on the yes committee, you can't use your school email address, you can't use your school computer, you can't use your school printer, none of that stuff, and you can't do it on school time. So when you're at the board table, you can't advocate, but when you're not at the board table, you can. We're getting there, Daisha.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
The 4 steps to success, and I've done this presentation for School Board Association, I've done this presentation for the the International Association of School Business Officials. In Indiana, I've done this for lots of different folks. We like to have these 4 things all go well for us. Community engagement up front, that leads to a good project. So a lot of times that sounds like a construction, but it's also about a referendum for an operating levy. It has to solve a problem and do it in a way that is affordable for your community. And then the district has to tell its side of the story, and then the community advocates have to be out there. So the district usually uses the same stuff that you always use, all the types of vehicles, communications vehicles that you always use. But you're communicating facts with everyone. And that's different than what the yes committee does. Its goal is to identify yes voters and get them to the polls. So it's going to use persuasion. The same is true if there was a no committee, and I understand if you had that in 2010, right? So they also used the same tactics, it's just on the other side. So let me go backwards and let's talk about this. This is our job. Every minute that the superintendent and that the business manager are not in the community talking to people and answering their questions because they're typing is a wasted moment in their lives. They have relationships. You all have relationships with community members. What we can do is provide you with the background material. You know, when you pass out a business card that says, here's the web address to be able to see all the information that you need, even if you're a 3-minute reader, it's all there on the website. That's something that we're going to help you produce. We're going to be the 3 C's. We're going to be clear, concise, and consistent in our messaging. There's going to be mail pieces. There's going to be, if you have a district newsletter, we would take advantage of that. Presentations and meetings, all the stuff. We're going to help you produce all that stuff, and most of that, Dave is going to make Dave write, but it's going to be based on messaging that we hear from you all. So that's where this stuff comes from, and we get paid to do that. That's what you all signed a contract for us to do. For the Yes Committee, we're going to, just like any staff member could do, volunteer on the Yes Committee. We're going to volunteer on the Yes Committee, and I'm going to talk to the co-leaders of that Yes Committee every once in a while and make sure that they're on the right track, because an awful lot of times when Zionsville, I didn't have to talk to them at all, because they had a guy that was he was a campaign guy who ran campaigns for U.S. Senate. He knew what he was doing. He didn't need me to advise him. Mostly community members who are on a Yes Committee have not done this before. There will be some people who have done it before in your community who were on the 2017 or the 2010 campaign. So they're going to have some ideas. But a lot of times people just don't know what they're supposed to do. So we volunteer our time to say, here's what we can do. This is the strategy that you should be using. So that's, hopefully it answers your question, Daisha. Any questions, any follow-ups?
My question was not on the committee, it was if the school can't pay the Indiana code said we can't put any money towards referendum
Towards advocacy.
advocacy, but if we hire you, of course, we're not hiring you, that's advocacy, but is it a gray area?
It's information. So the difference, the super easy definition is
Okay.
vote yes November 7th is advocacy.
Okay.
Vote November 7th is not advocacy.
I see.
Um,
Okay.
Sharing information like, this is 18% of our budget, and if that goes away, this is the number of staff that would be the equivalent to reducing. Or if we keep it, this is what we're going to do with the money. Those are facts.
So that's why on the calendar, when you say at school board meetings, talk about it, yet one of the comments was we no longer can speak about it at the school board meeting. I was like, they're conflicting. It's just, we can't say vote for yes at the school board meeting, but we can talk about the facts at the school board meeting.
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you.
Or in the other room.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect.
So roles, who's doing what? The yes committee has a bunch of things. We'll talk to the yes committee and say, here's what your role is. They need people. They need, in order to be able to inform people, this, one of the things that we ask for the superintendent and other administrators to do and the school board members to do is to talk to people, have conversations, have people ask you questions. If you've got an answer for them, great. If you don't have an answer for them, tell them we'll get back to you. Give me your contact information. Either I'll call you back or Dr. Greiner will call you back or somebody's going to call you back. And so even the role of the advocates is just to have conversations. So we want people to make phone calls. We want people to door knock, whatever the method is that is going to be the easiest way to get around in the community. We want people to have those conversations. Those are the things that are the richest way to help people be informed and make an informed decision at the polls. So that can take a lot of people to be able to reach a lot of people. So they need to recruit people. It might take money to be able to produce flyers, that sort of thing, and all of that. So this is kind of what their responsibility is. They would put together a team that looks like this, with somebody who's doing, the website and the Facebook page and door hangers or whatever. The administrative team is making sure that staff know what's going on, and also being open to having parents ask questions, again, in a way that is not advocacy, and especially when we get, again, the state code allows for those few people to be able to advocate. But if somebody comes to parent-teacher conferences and they ask a question, they want a fact. They want factual information. We don't want staff around the clock at that time. They can't share advocacy. The superintendent could, but they come to parent-teacher conferences, and that's not what they're there for. They want information. So we want to be able to make sure that those two audiences, especially, are being connected with, because that's who you're connecting with on a daily basis already. School board members play a critical role, especially as the eyes and ears of the community, because you are networked. People know you. You all got elected. There's enough people that know you that voted for you. So you're connected, and we want to make sure that if there's something going on in the community that is maybe misinformation, that gets back to Dr. Greiner, that gets to us, so we can be doing the communication that corrects that misinformation. So that's one important piece. We do want you to be visible in your support. Yeah, we voted. Maybe it's going to be unanimously on July 10th to put this on the ballot. We want you to tell people, yeah, we did that.
Jeff, can I interrupt you here for just a second? Dr. Yin, it's policy and it's also state law that you, because you're not going to be present at the next meeting, will not actually be able to vote. do the referendum vote. You can't do that digitally, so, or virtually. So it would be very helpful along those lines, though, if after we take that vote, if you, before or right after, you were able to speak of your support, at least in our meeting, if you do indeed support the referendum, which I believe you do, because your vote won't be tallied, so you would want to make sure and say that. Does that make sense? Okay,
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
thank you.
Dave is pointing out that be visible in your support seemed contradictory to the advice that I was sharing with you. And yet, Rachel, what your request was to Dr. Yin is right. I mean, in the end, why did you guys put this on the ballot anyway, if you're not in support? So it is important that you share. And we put this on the ballot because I looked at this, and this is what it looks like if we have that revenue, and this is what it looks like if we don't. We'll be sharing talking points with you all. We want to make sure that we're singing off the same songbook or hymn, so we want to be consistent. You can, if you want to, take a role on the Citizens Committee. When I say you can lead by example, and if the Citizens Committee needs some funding to be able to pay for some flyers, you can donate to that Citizens Committee. And so this is one of the things that I, do I have any impact? Do school board members end up donating to those committees? I don't know, but I sure hope so, because you know what, if it's that important to you, then let's lead by example. Administration can do that too.
But not from a school corporation.
Right. So keep the superintendent informed. He is the conduit back to us again. And so please, if you are hearing stuff in the community, let Dr. Greiner know so that we can know, so that we can look to adjust if we need to. There will be open houses and presentations set up. That's a great opportunity for you to be visible. You don't have to all be there. If you were all there, we'd have to post the meeting anyway. And so figure out, okay, here's the next set of open houses. I'll take this one, you take that one. Let's work together and try to cover all the bases. Any questions on this? This of course is what pertains to you school board members the most. Any questions on that?
May I ask?
We can hear you, Dr.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So we have a pack for this, right, for this referendum. And the past two school board elections, there was a pack for the school board team. I wonder whether in the fund for that pack can be transferred to this pack, because it's for the school, right?
It's
If so,
possible.
how to process it?
It's possible to do that. I've talked to a couple of people who are interested in potentially taking on the role of co-chairs of the committee. They're seeing they're seeing that last pack was politicized in a way that they were uncomfortable with. They can choose to either continue with that pack or start a new one. And they can choose to have that money transferred from the last pack to a new one if they did that, or they can choose to not do that at all. And so we'll wait to figure out what might happen next, depending on who ends up leading that next. And if there is any organization at all, the state of Indiana requires them to file with the state as a political action committee. And as long as you spend $500 or take in $500, then you have to file as a political action committee. They are feeling, the people that I'm speaking with are feeling like even the title of a PAC or a political action committee is charged in a negative way. They would prefer to be called a yes committee or something else. And so we'll see how that evolves. I do know that there are people out there that want to be advocates. And we are going to let them be advocates in the way that they feel is going to happen the most authentically and all of that. So I think you're right, that's an opportunity for them, and we'll see what they want to do with that.
Yeah, thank you very much for looking at the issue. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have a question. So you're meeting with the people that were with the RDP PAC that's now the Citizens, I don't remember what they named it now, Quality Citizens or something, PAC. That's who you're meeting with to see if they want to lead this yes?
No,
PAC or-
I've spoken to I'm speaking to a lot of people.
Okay, and where are you getting, like, who's recommending, like, we got a recommendation of who should be the PAC leadership for the yes committee. Where is that coming from? Like, who's leading that charge?
There's sort of a couple of lists floating around, and I think that one was shared with you that Dr. Greiner shared, I think I can't remember who you shared that.
It was the board officers
Board
who
officers.
who have that information. And there's no absolute list, but I think we were definitely asked to review or offer names.
Yeah.
And so we did that.
Mr. Daler asked me and Michelle and Anna to make a list. And so I took it to the board officers after we made the list because I'm not connected quite yet, like the board.
So there was a name given to us. I guess I'm not clear. That name is the leadership? That's who you're at? I mean, we were given a specific
Oh,
name.
you're talking about for the yes committee.
Yes.
Yeah, so I went out and asked if that name would be interested after Mr. Daler asked if I had people that might be recommended. And so he's beginning to talk with that person and a few others
So
to get
that-
that solidified.
Okay, and then once you get a leadership of the yes committee, they'll decide, do they want to work with the other PAC that's in the community? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay. So I think it's interesting that we are staying in such a small circle. I mean, you're working,
We want to be broad.
so my concern is the people, I mean, I've only heard one name, but it's a very, very, the same people doing the same thing. It's not inviting the community to be involved. So to me, that's very concerning.
I talked to Dr. Greiner and asked for, please provide me a list of opinion leaders. So we're actually kind of talking about two lists now. The group of opinion leaders are people that I want to pick, and I won't be able to talk to all of them because a lot of people, which is wonderful. Thank you for overachieving. And these are the people that are going to be part of our research to help us understand the community. But on that list are going to be people who are supporters, people who are champions for the school corporation. And so some of those people will end up also being talked about here. We want people who are connected with senior citizens, with business leaders, with Purdue University, with the schools, with any kind of group of people that you can imagine, because we need liaisons with these groups to be able to do a better job of communicating our message. I mean, it's a little bit like, I can't walk into any of a business or an organization here in West Lafayette if people aren't going to know who I am and they're not going to pay attention to me. We're looking for people that walk in and they'll go, oh, there's Lawrence. He can.
I want to highly available.
Yes, exactly.
But my question is other than regarding the advocate this referendum, other than PAC, we have another avenues, other strategies we can use other than PAC.
If you're going to advocate, you have to create a PAC. That's the way state law works. So if it is, again, there's little tweaks to that. So again, you have to take in or spend $500, and now you are considered to be an organization, and that has to file with the state of Indiana. So can individuals?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Can they advocate for or against a candidate or question? Absolutely. Can they band together? Probably to a point. But does it serve us well to have more than one group of people who are advocates? Probably not. Probably be better to work together, because then we get the 3 C's, the clear, concise, and the consistent messaging.
I have a concern just to share you. I think it's very clear that the board is a divided kind of 4-3 board, and the leadership is all on the the insider, or all the leadership. So when something like sharing names for a PAC that's going to be the whole community, this is not involving the whole community giving input. So to me, like I said, it is worrisome that already the first step for the referendum is the list of names is only among the board officers, which is not inclusive of that. So I just wanted to share.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
And thank you for that.
Yes.
Mr. Taylor, if I share, I think I already shared the list with you. If I share it with the entire board, would you entertain the idea of adding names to it so that additional
Absolutely.
names you could contact and make sure that, would that?
That would be
that-
wonderful.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Good points, well taken.
Yes.
I think this is not, I don't think anybody involved in this conversation is coming at this as, okay, this is going to be the group, it's going to be exclusive. You're not going to add anybody else, because that's at odds with what we want to do to make this a successful campaign.
And Mrs. Mumford, I will share that when Mr. Daler gave to me, I was working at a kind of quick turnaround, but when he sent it, he didn't say board. He said, Dr. Greiner, would you make a list and maybe work with your team and make a list? And so I sent it to them to say, is there any but I'm missing? Hearing your point, I could have and should have sent it to all of you, and I'm very happy to do that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I think that it's important to not, and we've talked about this before, but there's this idea of like, well, there must be something nefarious going on. There's really not. We had a superintendent who's new to the area. He sent them to the board officers, which is really appropriate for a superintendent to do. And we had to turn it around in a matter of hours. And so we turned that list around, and it was an extensive list, but as they said, it's not exclusive in any way. And it's not the intent to do that. The reality is that the more people we get supporting the referendum, the better. The other reality that I think we have to address in some form or fashion is that Mrs. Mumford, you in particular, have repeatedly accused many members of this current board and the past board of somehow doing inappropriate things using a political action committee. And your statements about that are not based in truth, in reality, in fact. And so anytime that word PAC comes out, that gets people really fired up. I'm sorry, could I ask you to be quiet, please, in the audience? It's distracting. Thank you. So it's really, it becomes tricky to negotiate. It becomes a big ask for Mr. Daler to go to some of these people who have served our community for a very long time to say, hey, can you help us with this referendum? Because they have been harmed by misinformation that's gone out. And I mean, that is a reality. That is a threat, is some of the misinformation that's been spread and things that have been said. So we do have to kind of address that and approach it with an attitude, from my view, an attitude of gratitude for people who are willing to step into that. But no, there's not been any attempt to be exclusive. There's no club here, and there never has been, to my knowledge. Mrs. Austin, did you have something? I'm sorry, I saw your hand up and then down and then.
Yeah, I'm being kicked out of the area I'm in, so I'm not sure how my connection will be if I go elsewhere, but I wanted to echo what you just said about the PAC. It's not a dirty word. It's not something that was done to exclude anyone or cheat in any way, and the allegations about what went on in previous elections and previous referendums even has been harmful to a lot of people. And all of those allegations came directly from you, Daisha. So if people have a problem with PACs, it's because you told them to. When the reality is that's how money gets spent in elections. That's the legal way to do it. And if a group of people decided to support a group of candidates, that's politics. So I would hope that you would stop using that language in your summaries. Honestly, I hope you stop the summaries altogether. But if you don't, I hope that you'll stop using that language because it's extremely misleading and harmful to this community.
So just so I could clarify, I mean, there's a lot of history to these comments. There's history, and we don't need to get into everything. But the information that I shared with the PAC, I'd gotten from the election board paperwork that shows school construction architect, school lawyer, a lot of school consultants who donated to the PAC for a certain number of school board members. And so this is a politically charged topic in our community, and there is history which you can look at the filings of who was involved. And so it's more detailed than just what our meeting said. But
Companies that the school contracts with are not allowed by law to donate to a PAC. Individuals that work for those companies are. One of the people that I was speaking with today who is considering being an active member of this new organization, isn't interested in anything that looks like a conflict of interest. One of the things that, and I appreciate the comments of, okay, let's, this is a good thing or a bad thing. We all have our opinions. I like the idea of an entirely new organization. Not that the people that were on the last organization did a poor job. They won by 94%. They did a hell of a job. There should be some gratitude for them and their work in getting that 2017 referendum passed. The political charged nature of that PAC makes me concerned about it. And that means that the people that were on that PAC, no matter what a great job they did, are probably, because of their association, are probably also politically charged. Can they do their job effectively? Maybe they can. Can they focus on the mission? I hope they can focus on the mission as much as I want for the school board to focus on its mission. So I think it's a challenge. It's a challenge that we need to work through. And I would encourage all of us to think about how can we do this in a way that is not going to alienate any prospective voters. We need every voter. I was literally part of a referendum in fall of last year that won by 8 votes. Now, you're not going to be that close. I'm positive that you're going to win by a big margin. But it's possible to win or lose by 8 votes. Every vote that we alienate is one vote that we didn't get. We need all of those votes. And so we can't, again, this is our referendum to lose. Let's not lose it because of allegiances to anything. Let's win because we want this kind of revenue to continue to contribute to our children's education. I'm going to skip the next discussion slide and go to instead. I think there was a handout, and I see Deja's got a copy of it. Maybe some of you have one too. It's the kind of the broader timeline. This is the synopsis, the summary of that timeline. There's work to be done from the school district's perspective that's on that list, and so it's a busy amount of work to do, but it's doable. We can do it. I will say though that it's going to take us time on the research side to get stuff ready to go, to come up with the messages and all of that stuff. Typically, we launch a website the day after your vote. We're not going to do that. We don't have that kind of time. So that's probably going to come, I think we listed as the end of August or something like that. We might, in fact, I think we broke it into phases. Phase 1 of a website in August, phase 2 in early September. And so we'll have some basic information up first, and so we'll put stuff together. Unfortunately, it's going to be a little while. We're going to target having some information available for the opening of school. But it takes time to produce kind of, once we have the messaging down, then everything kind of flows out of that. And boom, we can start cranking this stuff out. But it takes some time. So there's a period of time when you're not going to have anything after July 10th to work from. And so, Madam Chair.
I just had a question. I know we kind of touched upon this, but I think it's important for everybody on the board to have the opportunity to weigh in on this. There's a lot of anecdotal, oh, this community is telling me this, or that friend told me that kind of communication that's happened. To me, it's important to recognize that about 70% of our voters do not have children in our schools and would vote. And B, it's important to understand that anecdotal information, the apple bin conversations that happen in the grocery store are not necessarily the views of the broader community. So I'm interested in understanding what objective information you're going to try and obtain through polling or other things. We've done that in past referendum bids. So what's kind of your plan for that?
Yeah, the questionnaire is not put together. We're going to get a couple of bids from reputable survey firms to find out what they can do, and that also takes time. Typically, that's 6 to 8 weeks. We're going to see if we can get a compressed timeline on that. What are we looking for from that? We want to know, first and foremost, how do you feel about the school district, and why do you feel that way? What are your priorities when it comes to public education? What are the do you care about career and tech ed? Do you care about, athletics or activities? Do you care about enrichment classes? Do you care about, what are the things that are, I tell you, one of the things that communities are asking for now is mental health support. And so what do we know? Part of that helps us as a school board to prioritize how we spend money. So there's a large portion of the questionnaire that will go towards that. Some of it is, what's the tax capacity? Well, ordinarily that's a big deal because we're asking for more money than what we've been asking for in the past. We're asking for the same amount. So I'm not sure. I'm going to rely on the pollster to tell me what's applicable in this particular situation around that question. We ask other questions like, how do you receive information about the schools? How would you prefer to receive information from the schools? That can help you not only for this referendum, but it helps you ongoing in your communications efforts to make sure that the community members are informed. So there's a variety of other subjects that we get into, but that's most of the stuff that we're looking at.
Thank you.
So what can you do or say prior to when the materials are made available? You can say, our board voted to put this question on the ballot. More information will be coming to you. We apologize, we're getting to you a little bit late, but around the start of school, watch for the first stuff to come out. If you're a resident and you don't have kids in school, you will get something in the mail. If you are a parent, you're also going to see e-newsletters. If you're on social media and you're following West Lafayette schools, you're going to see information there. So please look for that information when it comes out. And then, okay, this is just the most fabulous picture there ever was, because look at the faces on these kids. They're just spectacular. And so this is your first robotics competition, folks. And so it's about kids. And if you don't speak for the kids, who is going to? There are a lot of other school corporations that are way worse off than you are because their communities are divided about whether or not education is working in their communities. And they have lots of angry voices in the community that are speaking up against their school corporations. You're fortunate to not have that. But if it pops up, you've got to take that role of speaking for kids. And so, again, this is about mission. What are you all here for? And it sounds like you all pretty much agree that you want what's best for kids. And that's a strength. So keep that up. Let's continue to get that mission forwarded. So, okay, that was a really long presentation. I will tell you that almost all of these kickoff presentations go for a half an hour.
Yeah.
And we just did it in 2.5. So, but there were some things that I wanted to make sure that we had a discussion about. And we did, and some of it was challenging. Some of it will require further conversation that I will be having with the superintendent, and some of it will require you all to have conversations amongst yourselves. You don't have to like each other, but you gotta.
Well, I don't know who's leading. Before the work session's over, I'd like to discuss the question that we're proposing, since that's on the agenda to be voted on at the next meeting. So I don't know who's leading this or who I'm asking.
I'm done. So you guys take
Yeah, okay. You were asking me, go right ahead.
Thank you. We have changed the wording of the question from 2017, and I have concerns, and I've heard others who have the same concern. We're cutting out now the class size part, I've talked to you about that, and adding in, instead of spending the money on operating expenses. I would like to see us go back to the old question and spend the money that way and show our community that we'll spend the money the way that we said in 2017. And so I propose that we add class sizes back into the question and not remove it. I mean, I know this isn't an official motion. I'm just bringing, I guess that's my comment. And I don't know who wrote the question or who decided what went in and what went
I
out.
believe Mr. Reuter and Mrs. Herman
Okay.
presented that in our work session earlier. I'm trying to think about the best way to, because you're not going to vote, you're just taking Mrs. Martin's question.
Yeah, no, it's just what the correct, course of action is. It's kind of, our meeting's on Monday and we've been sitting with the question for a while.
Let's see what
Well, I
Mr.
asked for the work
Mr.
session.
Reuter, would you, right, so the point of, just to clarify that point, we could not ask Mr. Daler to work for us for free. And I did not want to presume that the board would vote to approve Mr. Daler. So we had the vote, we did not schedule a work session. We hired Mr. Daler the morning after the vote to do that. And he's been working hard for us in the meantime. But as he indicated, he's spending about 2/3 of his time dealing with things other than the referendum. So we're gonna have to try and take good use of his time. But there is an order to these things. And there was not, so we're moving the process.
So my question is, why did they haven't done our referendum. Jane Herndon, I don't know how much she was involved before. To me, what they decided in looking at the new question is, how did we spend the money previously? And that's what our question looks like now. And so the question is, can we go back to the way it was? And why are they the ones that were driving what the purpose of our referendum was?
They weren't driving the purpose of the referendum. And I think that the change was to operations as opposed to educational related expenditures. So that's in.
To be more concise.
Yes. And so the educationally related type things was transportation, was maintenance, custodial for the schools. And so I believe what we heard was basically what you just said, that it's more concise and clear, but it's not a change in those expenditures. It's where those expenditures, as you said, have been occurring.
Okay.
Yeah, so the operational, it's just that it's it's goes into that fund, right? So, which educationally related transportation and those types of things would come out of there. So it's just more clearly, I think, from their perspective stated.
Okay, so changing that education purpose to operating,
The education and related programs was the operations type things that are education related. You have to have transportation to get students to school. We have to keep the facilities clean and safe. So that's what that education related programs meant. We decided that we needed to probably be more concise in that language, since there were some concerns that we brought up. So we were listening to you. And that was a recommendation from us in the discussion with Mr. Reuter and Ms. Herman when we were looking at that question. So,
okay, now why were class sizes removed from it?
Honestly, I don't recall, as opposed to it was to maintain class sizes.
Right, was the wording. And so that, I mean, I brought it up before about the class size concern, and that ties in directly to our larger class sizes is our transfer students. The numbers that we have currently, would you mind sharing where we're at on our transfer students?
Hang on, Mr. Reuter's got a comment
good.
here. Please go ahead, Mr. Reuter. If you're trying to talk, you're muted.
he said his mic is not working.
Oh,
I'll call him.
okay, great. We're going to call you. We'll come back to you. Thank you. We'd like to hear what you have to say, Mr. Reuter.
You are on speaker, yes.
Do you want to hold it to your mic?
It's feedback. We should know. Okay.
He wisely hung up. Okay.
Have him text me.
Okay. So go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean
Oh,
to
I'd
interrupt
say
you.
that the transfers are at approximately 130 right now.
So 134, which is more than double where it was at 2 years ago. And so as we're seeing class sizes go up, we're seeing more and more students come in. So to me, I don't know who made that decision because it was before I came on, that we're accepting transfer students from TSC. I understand we're closed from a state point of view, getting state funding, but we are letting students come in from TSC. As those numbers are going up, our class sizes are going up. And so to me, this is a big concern that needs to be addressed that ties into the referendum question. Because as more transfer students are coming in, it's driving down the spending per student in our district. And so this is a big deal to
Mr.
me.
Reuter pointed
Good.
out that our revenue spending plan does mention class size, maintaining class sizes in it as part of our revenue spending plan. And you do have that as in your box, and I believe it's in the box right now, isn't it?
It is. I think it is.
New things, right? The revenue spending planning, they just,
Yeah,
well,
that was put on today.
yes. So that's the information are included.
And that is the thing that we will bring every year to you during the budget process that will kind of outline our priorities for the referendum for each year of the budget. And so we're bringing to you what that first year will be like for 2024, and that revenue spending plan is part of what you approve next Monday.
I didn't see that, so I'm kind of having a follow-up question. But my question is basically for the class size controls or management, whatever we call that. Do we need to set up a target or make that a measure? Say,
I think Dr.
Does
Grant
that
is
make
more
sense?
eloquent in explaining that than I
it
am.
makes sense to say we target, let's say, 21 kids for say fifth grade, let's say that, and then we just achieve that. That's measurable. You see what I mean? Do we have that?
And we were just, Mrs. Lampert and I were just having that discussion the other day, actually, Mr. Wong, and we would increase teachers. We would add teachers if we get to a certain point. So right now, fourth, fifth, sixth, for example, we don't have a set number because it's very situational too. So we start talking with principals, and even the Teachers Association, during discussions, we talk about this toward the end of the school year. You'll see it's not uncommon to have it on the agenda and then for discussions, and then at the beginning of the school year. And so we collaboratively look at those class sizes and we determine how things are going. And so if we were, for example, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, at 25 across the section, we'll start talking and we will add another teacher if necessary. So we wouldn't, we don't not hire a teacher if we get to a point where the numbers would justify hiring another teacher.
Said that there may be flexibilities because of some, but do we have some? What I'm saying is we need some measurable things, and then we can talk to people. Hey, you know, this is your money. We use that to support these things, and then this is the target. And if without your money, that will be say 25 kids per classroom. Now because you support our referendum, and then we can manage this class under say 21, for example, just for discussion purpose. Mm-hmm. So is that doable, or you think that's?
I mean, just like we can't force people without children to move out of our school corporation, we can't force people who live in our school corporation to procreate. So there's always going to be fluctuation among class sizes, among different things. And Mr. Reuter, I'm sure if he were on here would speak to this, and perhaps Mrs. Cronk would touch on it, but he very much laid out for us in our financial plan, and I think you were here listening to it, about how maximizing our school's space and teachers and efficiency made the best financial sense, and gives us opportunities in our schools to provide more resources to our students, because we're operating kind of at that maximum efficiency. Prior to 2 years ago, we didn't have capacity in all our buildings to allow that. Now with the renovations, we are able to extend that a little bit. And that's the background on it. I don't want to cross over into yours, but that's just kind of some of the pre-Dr. Greiner background and what was going on. And one of the objectives of the construction projects were to create a little bit of capacity. And as Dr. Greiner laid out in his notes, we have now classroom spaces available in our buildings to do that.
So we would add if the numbers justify it, and then obviously if we don't have the space, then we would have to cut off and not take additional transfers.
I think another thing, I remember you, Miss Michael, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he talked about the best way to optimize the utility usage. Yeah, I'm still kind of struggling to understand why. I mean, it depends on how much tuition we charge for these transfer students. Otherwise, I mean, suppose this room supposed to serve 50 students, and you have 60 students, and you say, yeah, of course, we increase the utilization rate, but financially speaking, whether or not we are better off, well, I'm still not quite get it. So that's I'm still think about that. But also, in terms of classroom size, it's not really total numbers. It's kind of individual class size. Each class size is individually. For example, if you have 5 special needs students in one classroom, that will be different from another classroom with only 1 student with special needs.
You're exactly right, Mr. Wong, and that is exactly why I'm very hesitant to put a specific number out. Yes, so you're exactly right. And that's why the Teachers Association puts it on the agenda, and or we do. One of us always gets it on there a couple of months before, or the first couple of months of school, and at the end, as we're starting to close out the school year, we start having that dialogue. And administrators at the building level, central office administration, and the Teachers Association, we start having that dialogue early on and then toward the end. So, and that collaborative effort is important because of what you just said, that it is situational. One classroom may look different than another classroom or grade level, depending on those needs, as you suggest. And so that's another reason why we're hesitant to give a specific number, because it might look different in a different at a different period of time based on challenges or situations.
Yeah, but things we still need some ways to measure this the impact or the positive impact of this referendum, so we can talk to people. Hey, this is your money. We use that. This all. For example, the city councils. When I first moved here, they clean up the snow day at 5 o'clock. So I think the money I spent for tax, local tax, I get that back. I really served very well. See, they come here, collect the garbages July 4th. I think we paid good money for the survey. So I'm saying there's some ways we can.
Yes, so as we maximize the building capacity, then we're adding students, and therefore we're increasing revenue, but we're still running those buildings at the same level, right, of the cost to address the bills and so forth. And so then when you maximize your space, then you're able to pay your teachers better.
Okay, Dr. Yin has had her hand up here for a while. Please go ahead, Dr. Yin.
Yeah, class size issue is important, but frankly speaking, based on my knowledge about literature, actually class size is a big topic in education field. It's complicated, and the answer is not necessarily, you don't necessarily have like an exact number, and it depends, and different levels type of classes, and based on empirical study, for Asian countries, and even though class size is relatively bigger, and then the Western countries, but the learning outcome is not necessarily, worse. But I feel, but in general, yes, small size better. But I guess for ours, at this point, maybe we don't need to be so detail oriented. And I think it's okay to lump that together with like other education program and so on. So we can focus on our effort on, how to get the top. And I have actually questions about the timeline and presented earlier. And, there are lists of tasks, for example, outreach to this and that. I wonder who will be those people who do this outreach, and the school board or the consulting company, or who will do those things, play those roles.
So Mr. Daler explained that the advocacy group, so it's the difference between vote yes or vote. And so that's the difference between information and advocacy. And so we as a school corporation will not direct that vote yes, that advocacy. Our school corporation cannot advocate. We can provide information. I don't know if that explains any better, Mr. Daler. I don't know if you want to touch on you use better.
Yeah, my question is, for example, there are different communities we need to reach out, right? And then who will do that, the specific tasks? I just feel at this stage, and it seems to me all of us actually agree to do the referendum and to do it in November. Now we need to make the specific plan, how to do it, how to divide the tasks to different groups, and the procedures, those things. We don't do that
as a board. We've hired Mr. Daler to help us. Mr. Daler, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I think, Madam Chair, you're on the right track. That the board's role is to vote, to put the question on the ballot. From there, you can participate in the PAC if you so choose. Also, in your role as a board member, we would love for you to be in the community and speaking with people, especially if there are people that you have relationships with that other members of the board do not. So how do we, and I think maybe part of your question is, how do we reach certain groups of people? And that's where we do want, people that look and sound like those people, whoever it is that we're trying to reach. When I was living in Lawrence, Indiana, there was a significant Hispanic population and another group of people who were immigrants from Haiti. So how do we reach those people? Well, the best way to reach those people is to have someone who is an opinion leader in that community, who is informed, to go into that community and say, here's what I know. And so if there's a particular group of people that you are in community with, then you'd be a great liaison to that group of people, just as is Brad, or as is Rachel, or Daisha, or Tom, or Lawrence, or Amy. Is that coming close to what you're, and so if you've got particular groups of people.
Yeah, so we will later have a more specific plan for those task allocation, right? And let's say we have different communities and then we allocated them to different people to be responsible for or something like that. So that way we can be more efficient to cover different communities and to reach out to them and communicate with them and about the importance of the referendum and so on. And just, yeah, I guess you probably have the specific plan for the future and just, yeah.
Good. All right, good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
So on a follow-up on the transfer students, to me, it economically does make sense to bring in transfer students if our teachers and parents were happy with our class sizes, and then we had a classroom sitting half empty, then we would want to bring in transfer students. But the concern is, I myself am not happy with class sizes. I'm not hearing from teachers or parents that they're happy with class sizes, yet we're bringing in more students. And so correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that there are target numbers. Now it's general depending on needs. It's not going to be like, this is the threshold, this is the only way that we're going to talk about it. But my understanding, if I'm correct, elementary, intermediate, is when you get to 25, that's when it's like we need to really consider it.
Yes, but it may be earlier too.
Yes, if there's a higher need.
Yeah.
And then when you get
And
to the junior high or high school, a typical class, it's 30, is that conversation. And so
That's typically where is that where?
I believe when they do the scheduling, you run your schedule based upon student request. And so you have to set a max size for a section. Otherwise, if it were convenient for you and I to have English second period because we're in band and everybody else is in band, so English works best, that schedule, and you can set priorities on the schedule. The schedule will look for getting every kid in English is a top priority because every kid has to have English. So it might put all of us and maybe everybody in this room in second period English. But if you don't cap it at some point, then it'll start to filter kids elsewhere. And then as Mr. Wong pointed out, you may say second period English, we're going to make it a little bit bigger because there's not a lot of students in that classroom with the high need. But first period English, on the other hand, we want to make it smaller because there are some students in there who may have higher needs. And from the perspective of an open versus a closed district, if we were a completely open district, the state would require that if we were setting limits, that we publicize those. So I think that's where unofficial kind of numbers come into it, but there are no official numbers because we're not an open district where those would be publicized numbers to cap things. So it kind of sounds like maybe the discussion around numbers, yes, but official numbers, no.
But again, we would not hesitate to add a teacher either, so.
So then the question is, I actually would like to see us say we'll lower the class size because this is higher than we've just seen it creep up since since I moved here in 2007, it has just grown a ton. And since 2017, when we said maintain class sizes, we've actually gone up. And so I would like to see added to the referendum question so the community too can see it, because that was in it, like I said, 7 years ago, to lower class sizes.
Can you tell us where it was in 2017?
Yes, it might take me a few minutes. So you may want to go to a different topic.
The average
let
now
someone speak.
at Willis is 21.6. And the average now at the intermediate school is 23.1. So where was it 2017?
No, but I don't want the whole school. There's grades that are way higher than other grades.
I know that.
Like I think this year, fourth grade, they had 24 students where one of the grades had like 21 or 20.
There's always going to be outliers and anomalies, and it's going to be difficult for them to regulate.
I agree, but I'm saying when you have a child that is in that group of 24, then we need to address it. And so I don't want to see the whole building number. I want to see grade level numbers.
So I think here I want to congratulate, what sticks out to me in the conversation that's being had is that when asked the questions about class sizes and how they manage schools and how students schedule, that the education professionals in the room, Mrs. Roth and Dr. Reiner, are able to give clear and concise answers to how they're going to run schools and how they're going to run class sizes. As brilliant as we may or may not be as a board, it is not the role of a board of education to tell our school administrators what their class sizes must be. It's their role to do that in the best way possible for our students. If we need to make a policy that says class sizes may not exceed X, we don't need these great leaders who are making great decisions in terms of how many students with extra needs are in a particular classroom and what class sizes are very large and where kids are coming in. I mean, we know, I know from hearing Dr. Greiner and Mrs. Ross speak that many of our students are coming in struggling post-COVID to rebound. And we know that, and we know that that is an ongoing issue. And we don't have any business as a board in telling them how they need to get that done. Our role as a board is to make sure that they are resourced to do it correctly and that we're holding them accountable for the outcomes when we do performance evaluations. But none of us as a board need to be managing the day-to-day operations of the schools. That's a clear barrier that's built in terms of role between leadership in the school and leadership of the corporation. Those are different things. And I know that we have strong opinions about class sizes, and that's okay. And it's really appropriate to ask our leadership how they're going to get around this problem, what they're going to do to make what you perceive to be a problem better. That's a legitimate question to ask. But saying to them, we need to make this into policy set in stone, to me crosses a line of what's appropriate to do. So that's just my opinion. Dr. Yin, you've got a hand up. Please go ahead.
May I make a suggestion? So for me, I'm a teacher myself, and in our school, they by default set the class size as 25. But because so many students want to take my classes, they routinely ask me to, can I get in? So I allowed the school to increase my cap to 30 or something, even bigger, and so to accommodate the student needs, because I can handle those students, that many students. So from that experience, I wonder, I feel, it also depends, because some of my colleagues teaches the classes, for example, they have to give students intensive feedback on their paper and like every week or something. I feel, for them, surely they won't be able to handle probably even 20 students. And so my suggestion is, given this, I feel really it depends. So I wonder whether at some point, maybe not necessarily at this referendum point, but at some point, I think it's very important to survey our teachers, like one by one, individually, to see how they feel about their current workload in terms of the class size. And so for all the grades, for subjects, I feel people may have different feelings, and then we can make adjustment based on their real personal experience. And I imagine, for lower grade teachers and, for example, kindergarten, if they have largest class size, it would be really hard for them to handle. But on the other hand, for some higher level classes, maybe that's just my guess. But I really wish to hear teachers' input and their voice regarding the class size, and to help them, and so they can help the students to improve their attainment and everything. So that's my suggestion, because for me, I wish to have the data to understand this class size issue better. And because my impression is it depends based on what I learned from the literature, and it's a complicated issue, and many researchers actually study class size issues. And some people even say, if you, in the current situation, when you make the class size too small and you have trouble recruiting high quality teachers. So that there's a balance also. If we make a class size too small, maybe it will be too costly to run those classes. But on the other hand, if the class size is too big and students don't have enough attention, teachers will overwork and all those issues. But I really want to have the data from our teachers to understand the needs better.
Thank you, Dr. Yin. Mrs. Austin, did you have a comment as well?
Yeah, it's been really loud, and I extremely apologize if this is a repeat, but part of what's included in the class size is our resource teachers. And if we start getting really pedantic about those numbers, we might be unintentionally doing a real disservice to our students with special needs. And I have 8% battery, so you're about to lose me. Thank
you. This has definitely gone on longer than intended tonight, for sure. But Mrs. Mumford, I understand that you have a request to change the question. The question is the one that has been sent and approved. Is that correct? Yes. So you can raise that issue if you choose to at the meeting. Okay. Understand that if you choose to do that, that could be seen as dissent on our referendum campaign in general, but that's your choice to make that. Okay.
Sure. This question are already sent to somebody, the auditors, and they already approved this question. It's done deal.
It's been sent to the auditor and it's been sent to DLGF for prior approval.
So we cannot change this anymore.
It could be changed. We'll have to change all the board documentation before we would send it to DLGF if you would vote. If the board voted to make such a change, we'd have to change all of our documentation before we send it.
Not impossible, but a compressed timeline, so not ideal.
Yeah, but as I said, I think I understand Ms. Wade, your opinion. Basically, we don't want, I think you professional administrators and the teachers, the best person to decide class size. We don't want, we are laymen, they know what's the best class size. But my understanding, my things, because these things show up on the ballot. So basically the reader is pretty much the voters, they are laymen. So if they see the class size show up on here, they will feel much more better because they think we deliver high quality, special attention education to our kids. So it doesn't mean we want to intervene whatever you professional say this is supposed to be the class size, whatever. And I understand that we don't want specific numbers set up as a class size. I think that makes sense. But I would still prefer to add something class size over here. And it's not only for our students, and it's make the benefit is make the voters feel better, and also the teachers for teachers better off the teachers. We want to keep the teachers. If you classroom all classroom have a lot of people, a lot of students, for teachers' point of view, their work is kind of actual works. So if we have these things as a kind of target, it will help us return the teachers, the high quality, especially high quality teachers. So that's, I think, I think it's worth to try, but for you guys to see if there's too much troubles, that's okay. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
I appreciate your concern for how the question will be received by voters. I think the messaging and information we share to the community is going to be a really important piece of that.
Yes.
Okay, we are sitting at 3 hours right now. Are there any more questions or new content that needs to be brought in tonight for this? We'll be back together on Monday for a regular meeting. Yep, I am. Okay. Anybody, anything else?
Yes.
Okay, we have one person who signed up for to address the board tonight. That is Eric Adams. If you want to come forward, sir, I'll bring you up. If you would start, please, just by telling us your name and your affiliation with the school as well.
Sure. Can I first ask, what's the format of this and what are the parameters of this?
So, yeah, our policy is just that it's 3 minutes, so we never enforce that. So given we're sitting at 3 hours, if you would kind of keep in the ballpark of 3 minutes, that would be great. There's no other format. You can say whatever you want.
Okay.
Let me rephrase that. Sorry, there's one caveat I need to give you. It is important, and we ask all who speak to not specifically criticize any teacher or staff member. That is prohibited from this, as well as I would encourage you to avoid disclosing any personal information about any student.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So my name is Eric Adams. We've lived in the community probably 16 or 17 years. I work at Purdue University. I'm a Purdue alum. My wife's a Purdue alum. My 3 children are Purdue alums. My 3 children are also Westside alums. In addition, my wife is a teacher in the Westside Community School Corporation. She teaches kindergarten music at the elementary school, part-time. I just first want to say, I've been wanting to speak for a long time, and I haven't. And I've heard a lot of comments to all the various media and things that people talk about, well, people aren't coming to the board to share their comments. And there's a few reasons why. And this meeting is one example. This was a long time to sit, to wait, to talk, and quite honestly, shocking to watch the way some of this transpired. I have that wasn't even part of my discussion tonight, but watching this, I would expect, from my perspective, that leadership and especially incumbent members of the board would take the high road and would lead by example and just shut some of this stuff down. Right? We spend as much time complaining about the tangential conversations as the tangential conversations took, when you could have just said, I'm just moving on. So that's just my 2 points there. I did want to say, Jeff, I was born and raised in Louisville. So you're almost right. It's Louisville. If you want to be accepted as an insider, it's Louisville.
Yes.
Okay. Real quick. So there's also a lot of thinly veiled threats going around. Like some of the stuff in the conversations, it was transparent that the threats were being made to each other. So I'd be careful with that. I'm not here to represent Daisha, but sitting here and watching her get just absolutely dogpiled by everybody at every turn was disturbing. Somebody take the high road. Somebody be a leader and not go down that path. It takes 2 to tango, and this behavior is on all of them. Okay, so part of the reason I haven't come forward is because my wife is a teacher, and some of my concerns deal with my wife. And I've always felt uncomfortable with follow the given chain of command. The chain of command used to be email Rocky. So how do I, as the husband of a teacher, email my wife's superintendent with concerns about her work environment? That felt very uncomfortable on any scale, but especially with the way Rocky operated. My wife's been teaching for 10 years. When she was hired, which was after the first referendum before the second, she was told about this plan for this building to become an early education center, pre-K and K. And I then remember sitting and watching a presentation by Rocky where he explicitly mentioned that that was part of the plan, and that was in the referendum, and a big reason why I voted for it. My wife partly accepted the job part-time because she was told that when that came about, she would slide into the pre-K and it would be a full-time position, and she would just be teaching music to pre-K and kindergarten, right? She is uniquely qualified. You would have a hard time finding anybody else as qualified as my wife. She is a highly trained musician who has also got a kindergarten endorsement and a teaching license. So she does a wonderful job. She's a rock star in this community. We can't go anywhere that we don't have kids running up to her and hugging her and saying hi. Sometimes we have to try to take a different turn at Walmart just to try to avoid them and they catch us two lanes later. So she's been highly rated, highly effective the whole time. She's burned out. She's tired. Her mental health has taken a hit. COVID was a big part of that. You know, I watched her come home via COVID and have to try to completely reinvent something unique, which is teaching kindergarten music, and try to find a way to do it by video. Rocky made a statement that nobody would be required to teach virtually if they didn't want to. They could teach in person. Great, my wife's going to teach in person. She gets to school that year, and they're told, oh, by the way, specials have to do virtual in addition to in person. My wife's emailed Rocky with concerns that that's not what she was told was going to happen. Thank you. And he basically said, If you don't like it, you can leave. It's the way it's going to be. So even though she was promised to not have to do both, she had to do both. So I watched my wife break down in tears and just be so impacted and affected by all of the extra work that took. She had to teach herself how to be a video editor on top of all of the care for these kids. No stipend, no additional pay. Now, other teachers who did online were given a stipend for that. She was doing both. There was no stipend, nothing offered. It's also unique in the fact that she teaches every kindergarten class and 2 of the first grade classes. She's the overflow. It used to be handled by 3 different teachers, and it was a mess, and so they're very happy with what they have today, I think. And in that, she sees kindergarten class sizes in the 20, 22, 23 range. I don't care personally about an English class at the high school. That's a lot more flexible, way more flexible. What I care about is a group of kindergartners who come into a school system who won't label them until at least first grade, who may have these special needs, these emotional needs, these things that need help, and there may be 7 of them in one classroom. They almost never get changed to another classroom. There's 1 paraprofessional for the 8 kindergartens, not even enough for each classroom. And my wife will see every one of those special needs kids. And when there's 22 or 23 other kids in a classroom where it's movement and singing, not only is it hard for her, it becomes a safety concern. She's had to send kids to the nurse because they got hurt because a kid was out of control. It is recommended that the ideal class size is 13 to 17. 18 would be a stretch, so 18 should be the most. State of Indiana doesn't put a limit on kindergarten, but a 4th grade preschool, or a 4-year-old preschool is 10 to 1. So you got kids jumping from a 10 to 1 ratio to 22 or 23 to 1, right? For teachers who are already burned out. That's my concern with class size. The average is the average, and the average doesn't tell the whole story. My concern is kindergarten is foundational. We've got kids with special needs that don't get addressed until first grade because they don't get an IEP until then, because we don't label kids, we don't know. They're an unknown entity when they come in. Nobody knows, right? It takes a while to get into that. They've been told every year, oh, we're not hiring another teacher because projections are we're going to be down. And every year my wife has taught, it's been as bigger than the year before. It's always exceeding the projections. And what we found is that when they go to their local administration and say, we need some help, they say, well, we talked to central admin, there's nothing we can do. And I hear, sometimes it feels like it's going back and forth. Local admin blame central admin said, no, it's a local decision. So there's no help being done. I don't want my wife to lose her job. I don't want to come and put her in jeopardy. That's why I hesitated to say or do any of this, but we're kind of at a breaking point. We're about to wrap up a very expensive renovation of her house. We really don't want her to lose her job. But I also do let the chips fall where they may, because I can't watch her struggle like this and continually ask for help and not get it. At the very least, every classroom needs a para, and/or you need more kindergarten teachers. These young kids, it's a safety issue for them. I can't talk about specifics, but I've heard plenty of stories from other teachers and other people in the community about things that are happening because of the size of the classroom with these kids, and classrooms getting cleared out because somebody went long. 22 to 23 students in a kindergarten class is far too many, and those teachers are, and most of them are scared to death to say anything because there has been rumors in the past, I can't substantiate any of them, of potential retaliation for coming forward in a previous administration. I've heard nothing but great things about you, Dr. Greiner. I appreciate you being here, and I hope you continue to be a voice for change. And I have a lot of notes that I try to keep this short. You wore me out with the 3-hour meeting. So that is in a nutshell. My big concern as a citizen, a father, a mom, 3 moms, a husband, a teacher, I see the pain, I see the frustration. Every year at the end of the year, she's like, I can do this again. I'll come back refreshed. And every year by October, she's wondering why she's doing it. Not sure she can make it through the school year, yet alone another year after that. Maybe biased, but I'd ask you to ask anybody who's been through her class. She is the most phenomenal music teacher who teaches these kids a love for music while also teaching them about rules and community and getting along. She's a fantastic resource for this community, and she's burned out, really burned out, and she needs some help. So, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adams, for your speech, or for speaking tonight. Okay, with that, I will adjourn our work session. I appreciate you all being with us tonight, especially our guests. I just, as a side note, this gets commented upon. It is the policy of the board, Mr. Adams, to never speak or respond in the moment, and so please know that it's not.
That's the way I wanted to do it.
I appreciate you being here, but we try and allow, again, our corporation leadership to respond to those types of things. So thank you for that. All right, with that, I'm going to adjourn this evening's